Welcome and good evening to the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for July 18th, 2017. Item number 1, if we could call the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Lehman.
Here.
Councilmember Luce.
Here.
Councilmember Whiting.
Here.
Mayor Mars.
Here.
Councilmember Mokel. Here.
Thank you very much. Let's all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes, Mr. Reynolds?
Mr. Mayor, we do have one correction in the agenda on resolution number 7913, which is the 10D1. And in that resolution, we have an incorrect number. It states that the annual pension benefit would be $8,300 per year. The actual number is $8,025 per year. It is, however, correct in the memo.
Correct in the memo, wrong on the resolution?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No other changes.
Okay. Questions on the agenda, Councilmember Whiting?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with modification.
I have a second by Councilor Mokel. Councilor Lehman?
Should we, would we be better off taking 10D1 off or off of consent? It's not on consent. Never mind. We'll just modify it when we get to it. Just modify it, make sure that the resolution is correct before we pass it.
10D1 is not on consent.
Right, so we'll do it at that time.
Okay. Is that okay? All right. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. The agenda, as noted, has been approved. Consent agenda. Any adds, subtractions, Mr. Reynolds?
Nothing from staff, sir.
Councilor Lehman?
I have one just to clarify. It would be 4A4.
Amendment to the right-of-way permit in the alley?
Yep.
You want that off?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll move the consent agenda modified.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilor Lehman to Councilor Mokel seconds. Before we vote, we will have a reading of the modified consent agenda. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. These are the consent agenda items for July 18th of 2017. 4A1 adopts resolution number 7885, which accepts a $2,500 CenterPoint Energy Community Partnership grant. 4A2 accepts the quote from Gopher State Seal Coat Incorporated in the amount of $68,002.48 for the 2017 Trail Seal Coat project. 4A3 accepts the quote from Danco Commercial Painting Incorporated in the amount of $64,288 for the 2017 Schlepper Stadium Painting Project. 4B1 adopts resolution number 7914, which changes the City Council meeting date from August 1st, 2017 to August 2nd, 2017, and that is for night to night. 4B2 approves the minutes of the July 5th, 2017 council meeting. 4B3 approves amended street closure times for Rhythm on the Rails being held on Wednesdays from July 19th to August 16th, 2017. 4C1 adopts resolution number 7916, which approves the final plat of Maple Trail Estates 4th Edition. And finally, 4C2 adopts resolution number 7915, which approves the final plat of Jackson Elementary School 2nd Edition.
Thank you very much. I have a motion on the table and a second. The consent agenda as modified has been read. There'll be no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. The consent agenda has been approved. Thank you very much. Moving ahead to number 5, now I'd like to call on any resident citizen that would like to come forward and speak on an item not on the agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome on an item not on the agenda. Seeing none, thank you very much. Moving ahead to item number 6, business removed from consent, 4A4. 4A4 was amendment to the right-of-way permit, alley reconstruction. Mr. Lehman had a couple questions. Counselor Lehman?
Yeah, Mayor, the question I have, and we can't put this document on the overhead because we don't have one today, but the first page, it shows the alley shaded. The second page shows a parking lot shaded. So I'm is the parking lot part of the alley project?
They're both parts of the project.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so when we're talking about the assessments and the right-of-ways, what we're agreeing to here is the alley portion shaded only, not the parking lot shaded portion.
When we're talking about assessments, that's correct, sir. The alley will be assessed. The parking lot is owned by the city. I'm sorry.
Oh,
You're talking
Mr.
about
Kursky.
the one,
And this is where I got confused because currently there's a house on that lot.
Yep, but
yes, the apples and oranges.
let's
Talking
speak
about
to
the
the
wrong place.
right-of-way. 4A4 is for a project.
This is the old aerospace building.
Yep, yeah.
So the parking lot's being developed strictly by the
The
owner of
developer.
that building, the
Yep.
developer. This-
They bought the house, they're gonna tear it down, make a parking lot.
Yep.
But they want, they're petitioning,
For the concrete alley, right now it's gravel, we want the alley to be paved.
I got that part, but I'm trying to clarify because I was told that the city owns that parking lot and it's a house right
No,
there. So
it's-
I got all confused, so I wanted to clarify. So
I was incorrect.
a private owner is gonna take
Here's-
care of the parking lot portion of this project, correct?
Council member, here's the diagram. So the gray portion is the city alley.
Yep,
This is all being developed by the private sector. So here's the existing building, the
Small
existing
parking
parking
lot.
lot.
yep.
The house will be torn down, and the only thing that's being assessed is the new concrete alley.
Okay, the parking lot actually is the next lot over.
This one right here will be the new parking lot.
Okay.
expanded.
And that's a
parking
private
lot.
thing?
Yes, city has nothing to do
Okay,
with it.
okay, very good. That's the questions that I had there,
So
so,
clarified?
yep.
Yep.
My apologies, I was thinking of another project.
Well, and I asked the city administrator, and he responded, and he said, city owns a parking lot, and I'm like going, there's a house there, there's no parking lot there, we don't
No,
own this
it-
parking lot. So
yeah,
I
I-
responded, and I said, are we looking at the same project,
Yeah.
4A4?
Councilmember Lewis?
So, the aerospace building, the person that is
Yep.
presenting this, they are gonna pay the 30% for the whole alley? Or are they going to the rest of the residents for?
They're fronted.
They pay the 30% per our assessment policy for the alley, and then the city taxpayers in general, in this case, storm fund, I believe, but normally the remainder, just like a road project, that would be spread out over the tax base.
Yeah, my question is, are all the rest of the residents that abut that alley, are they paying part of it? Or is the one person at the building that's requesting this paying all of it?
Mayor and council members, I asked one of our staff members earlier today, and he indicated that the developer was gonna pay for the entire frontage, so 30% for the entire frontage,
Well,
including the other property owners that are not involved in this project.
Okay, that was my question, is because there's nothing in the document that says the rest of them are on board. Okay.
yeah.
So it would be the equivalent as if we assessed each individual property?
Correct.
We're gonna get 30% of the overall cost. It's gonna
Right.
come from one landowner.
Right. Okay.
Other
Um,
questions? Otherwise, Councilor Lehman?
I'll make a motion to authorize the appropriate city officials to execute the attached addendum to right-of-way permit with KJS Fuller LLC for a concrete alley from Atwood Street to Fuller Street between Second and Third. Move its adoption.
Councilor Mokel, second. Further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving ahead then, we will now, no public hearings tonight. We will stand in recess for the EDA authority, and this council is in recess.
Call the Shakopee EDA to order for July 18th, 2017. You shall have in your packets the agenda information. Ms. Mokel,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
is there a second? Ms. Whiting? Motion by Mokel, second by Whiting. Any questions? None? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Consent items. Mr. Whiting?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent business, which includes the EDA minutes and the EDA bill list.
Second by Mr. Lewis.
No, I have a question on the bill list, but
Are you seconding or not?
No.
Okay. You need a second for the
I have a
motion.
question too, so I know this is on consent, I'm trying to figure out how to get my question answered prior to that.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, go ahead.
Just, the
You want-
Well, we can
I
second it.
Do you
rescind
want,
my
do you
motion.
want something pulled from the consent agenda?
Go ahead.
All right, I'll make a second on the motion if, item number 3B can be pulled from the consent.
Right.
Is that okay with the motion maker?
I approve that, yeah.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion? So the motion is for the consent agenda, which will include item 3A, the minutes, as 3B has been removed from consent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 3B, EDA bill list. Mr. Myers.
I would just want to make sure that the refund for the Emerson deed grant for $500,000, we've done this in a couple steps. This is a pass-through portion, is that correct?
That's
Another
correct.
pass-through portion?
Correct.
So it doesn't really involve city money, it's money we got from deed, and Haldor is going to give, and we're just going to give it back to deed. Just want to make sure we did that before. I want to.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Any other questions on the bills? Mr. Lewis?
I just noticed that prior to one of our staff members leaving, there was an awful lot of activity on the EDA bill list with that person, and that person was in talks with another city to leave. I think we need to have some kind of reference to curtail that. If someone's going to leave within 6 months and they're abusing the system with going to seminars and things, I think we need to get paid back.
And I would point out that seminars have to be approved by their direct supervisor prior to being able to go. And in that case, I believe the supervisor would be the city administrator. Okay. Mr. Wade?
I think our policy is to be accepting of continuing education for all employees. You can't just pick one out and say just because they left that you want to refund. We got to be looking at things that for our employees is improvements and not holding something over their head.
Mr. Myers?
I don't have any more questions. I was going to make a motion, but I'll wait if there's more discussion.
Seeing none, make a motion.
I'd like to offer the EDA bill list for July 18, 2017 as stated.
Sorry.
Motion by Mr. Myers, seconded by Mr. Whiting. And I will reiterate Mr. Mars's comments that the pass-through of $500,000 for the Emerson project was money that came from the state. Turned around and went back, so it's not like it's tax dollars. Although it is tax dollars, just at a different level. Any other discussion on the bills? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Any other business? Ms. Mokel?
I'll make a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, August 15, 2017 at 7 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Whiting. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Tell this light is really good. I'm like,
Okay.
yep.
We'll reconvene this City of Shakopee City Council meeting for July 18, 2017. Completed our EDA authority meeting. Back on our regular agenda, we are at 10A 1, which is commercial industrial park dedication fees. And Ms. Polly will present. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is an item we're bringing back to you tonight to discuss. We discussed it pretty much at length at the last city council meeting. So we went back and we looked at other ways that we've calculated the park dedication fees in the past. if you see from the memo that was included in your packet, the current way of calculating park dedication fees for commercial industrial is based on the percentage of single-family and multifamily increases. Since we didn't have an increase or proposed increase in single-family and multifamily regular housing, we did for the housing that had a certain percentage, but for the base multifamily housing, we did not have a change. We had used a really old calculation that came up with that 11,000 per acre. So I went back, I looked at the multiple times that we've looked at this before in my tenure, and we've utilized the current option 1 that I put in your memo, which is based on that current formula. So what we did, we got the current land sales in the last year, took an average of those, and then we figured out what, at market rate, what a single family rate would be set for today and what a multifamily rate would be set for compared to those with our current rates to get that difference. And that's where we came up with an average for that of $2,268.27 would be the difference. You add that to our current rate of $69.30 and you get a rate of $9,198.27. That's one way of looking at it. The other way that we discussed at the last council meeting was looking at a different percentage. So you had in your packet the comparable cities list that we use, and a lot of them had percentages that they based their rates on. So I gave you an example. If we were to do 4%, 5%, 7%, similar to those other communities where we would be at. So really evaluating both options, kind of looking at where we were at with the 11,000 per acre, looking at the option 1 and the option 2. I'm leaving it for the council for discussion as to if you want to take my recommendation of going from average of those two or sticking with option 1 or option 2. So we did do an adjustment to the multifamily rates at the last meeting for any development that has 60% or more single-family studios. As you can see, I also included that big chart in your packet that I had given or showed you at the last meeting, where you can see not just the comparable cities, but really most of the metro area. And you could see for commercial industrial, we were extremely low. We're not still recommending any change for single family and the base multifamily because on those rates, we're fairly high. If we were to change it to what we could be based on their market sales, we would be extremely high. So we're still not making any recommendation to change those. But to get our commercial industrial more in line to where we should be based on the current land sales, we're recommending kind of that change, not the 11,000 per acre that we brought back at the last meeting, although I think we could justify that. We are recommending 9,500 per acre based on the two calculations and the 5%, if we were to go 5%, or the calculation of the average increase. For commercial industrial, that will put us among all of the metro cities, kind of the higher, or around half, but on the higher end of that half, but definitely not as high as Chanhassen, Eden Prairie. Those are closer to that 11,000. There's a 12,500 in there as well. But it would get us more in line for our city and our size. So we'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you. Questions of staff? So, Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, I've got two questions. One is I was looking at all of the data from other cities, and there's a lot of cities that tend to have different rates for commercial than they do industrial, and I was wondering what the rationale for that is.
I can't answer that without going to each individual city and asking. We have typically, in our comprehensive plan, considered commercial and industrial the same. So I can't answer that.
Okay. And then the other question that I had was, I'm looking at all of the various cities, and it seems like to be a wide variety. Some are 4% of market value, some are as high as 9, 10. Some have set rates that are fairly low, some are set rates that are higher than what you're proposing. So there seems like there is no rhyme or reason to any of this madness. It's just kind of everywhere. And there was one that really caught my attention. I think it was Apple Valley. And if I'm reading this right, Apple Valley's industrial is like $128 or something.
Yeah, that's per every 1,000 square foot.
Okay.
So they base it on the size of the
Well,
buildings
calculated.
going in.
All right. So I said typo.
Ms. Polly, I have a question. So reading this and I'm pouring over this chart, I'm trying to look at cities that are trying to redevelop themselves, metro cities, suburbs that are inner rings versus cities that are out. But option 2 comes across as like a percentage. But really, then I'm looking at the resolution and it's a set amount per acre. I know our formula, but and if I were a developer coming in and looking at it, that it's just a set price. So is that a fair understanding of that?
Correct, yep. When we look at, we could set the percentage, but as Mr. Thompson mentioned at the last meeting, the state statute and our ordinance say that it has to be fair market value. So we have to take each development, we would have to do a lot of calculating, trying to get all those fees from the county. So if we can set a fair fee, that's just a flat fee, it's easier to calculate for the developments. They know what it is up front. We have to do a lot of that calculation and getting it from the county. It's more waiting on the developer side. It's more tedious for getting that correct fee.
And Mr. Reynolds.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, one of the other things is that it really doesn't provide a developer with a set number that they know going into the process that they're going to have to pay. And I think that developers appreciate knowing what that is as opposed to waiting on us to do our calculations as they look to move forward.
Councilor Whiting.
Just curious, Ms. Polly, if you might understand this a little better, but there are some of these cities that are built out, already have their established park systems. Does that have some variance in some of their percentages in some of their cities?
I think it could. The majority of the cities around the metro have their base fee, and they change them. A lot of them the same way that we do on their fair market value of their land. So if they're built out and they're not selling a lot, if you go back a few years, many cities haven't changed their fees in a long time because they haven't sold a lot of land or they don't have the land to develop. So I think that does affect to what extent we'd have to go to each city, yes.
And I think the discussion the last time was we were at about 6,900 going to 11, and I felt this body obviously heard that was maybe a little too high, too big of a jump at once, and I think this is a better calculation, a better number in the end that it looks, and maybe we can go a couple years and then look at it again. But Councilor Lehman?
Two points, Mayor. First is a lot of these folks on this comparable are using percentages, and if the state statute doesn't allow that, there's a lot of them doing it. So
It does allow that. It has to just be the fair market value, so it's more.
a percentage of fair market
Yes,
value.
correct.
So we could do it that way.
We could.
Okay. And the second comment I would make is that I took 69 and just said 7, and then I took the 91 and 9, and then I took the last proposal of 11. We're right in the middle of what was anticipated and where we're at, and to me that seems like a reasonable compromise. So,
Would you like to make a motion?
actually, I don't want to be that supportive.
Well, all
I don't want to
right.
be that supportive of it, but I don't plan on voting against it.
I apologize for trying to, working to put you on the spot. Councilor Mokel?
I think that, I agree with the calculations kind of coming a little bit closer to maybe where we thought. I think we all looked at 11.5 and kind of gulped a little bit, and especially from where we were, and we still have some build up to do. But for me, I think this is exactly where, not exactly, but it's closer to where we're going to be, and I'm sure that hopefully we revisit this, sooner rather than later, the next time around versus.
12 years later.
Exactly, and not putting it off for another
It's been 12 years.
12
since
years
we
now.
changed
Oh, I thought you said October. I was going to say that's a little too
Oh,
soon.
November. Oh, yep. So not waiting the 10, 12 years the next time around. So, but I would be happy to make a motion of adopting ordinance number 964, revising the commercial industrial park dedication fees.
I have a motion on the table.
I'll second that with a question.
Councilor Whiting, second, and a further discussion or question?
Yeah, do we need to specify option 1 or 2, or is this laid out differently?
The resolution would be what we're voting on, and that is the set
It's
amount.
a set down.
Of 9,500.
95 minutes. Does that answer it? Further discussion? Discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, for reworking this.
Thank
And
you.
your graph, your chart was excellent. Moving ahead then to 10A2, maintenance, facility maintenance worker. Ms. Polly will present. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'll try to keep this brief. I was planning to bring forward to you during our budget discussion a second full-time building maintenance worker position, which is at a grade 2 of our non-union pay plan. We currently have one, along with a building maintenance manager that does the community center. With the build-out of and the completion of the community center, the plan, and I had presented this last year when we were looking at the operations of the community center as well, as the plan was to bring a second facilities maintenance worker forward so that we have a similar setup to what we've got in the ice arena that has worked very, very well so far with our 2 full-time maintenance workers and then the manager. I'm requesting to bring this forward now because our current facilities maintenance worker is out on family medical leave and has been for quite some time. Our building maintenance manager is working very, very hard to try to keep up on maintenance. We've been utilizing the ice arena full-time staff. We tried going out for a seasonal position to help him. No avail. We had a few applicants, but nobody showed up for any interviews. We have the option, maybe we could do it as part-time, but with it coming forward for next year, and not knowing the timing of our current maintenance worker to know if and when he'll be back, I'd like council to consider allowing us to add the second position now, advertising for it now, and then it will just roll into the 2018 budget, and we will be fully staffed at this time for what we propose for maintenance of the community center. You can see in the budget impact that if we were to hire it now, today, it would be an impact for this year of $22,500. Obviously, we have to put it out there, advertise, interview, so it's probably a month less than that, or 4 weeks less than that before we actually get somebody on. So it won't quite be that high. And then for next year, the total cost with benefits would be about $57,000, which we will add to our budget at the end. Looking at our current budget for this year as of June, our wages so far are right on now. We will open the pool shortly and we'll be fully operational here. So we should reach a lot of our maintenance. One of them that sticks out that as I was looking through here though, where I do think we will be under budget for staffing is our ice arena part-time. Having those two full-time staff has really cut down on the need for part-time. And currently with 4 months of wages in for the ice arena, we have for part-time have only spent $25,900. We budgeted $1,900. So even if we triple the $25,000 for the next 8 months, we're at $75,000. So we're about that $25,000 less there. And I see us staying within that path for that particular area. Everything else looks to be online, so I can't say right now if we're going to go over in part-time in any of the other areas. We don't appear to be on track to, but the budget is, we're sitting very well with the budget. So looking at that, I think just the ice arena in this would really help our maintenance of our community center, plus give our building maintenance manager some help. Desperately.
All right. Questions of staff? Councilor Lehman?
Couple questions, Mayor. The family leave, there's a set timeline on that, at least from the perspective of us paying. Is that 12 weeks?
It is 12 weeks.
No,
This is,
she's shaking her head.
He's
Sorry.
he's not on family medical leave.
No.
anymore.
Jennifer,
No.
welcome.
Mr. Mayor, council members, he has exhausted his family medical leave,
Right.
but he has enough sick leave, so he's on a paid leave at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that answers the first one.
Other question? I guess that's, I look at this and talking to staff on this, what's driving this is this medical leave with uncertain, we have an employee that's ill. And unfortunate, obviously, but then we have needs in the facility here, and that's kind of what I see as driving it. And looking at the impact and the minimizing of hiring someone now for a short period, or looking at a real need starting in next year. So kind of unfortunate, but I look at the need of the city for a situation like this. Councilor Lehman?
Yeah, I wasn't done with all my questions, thanks. My concern, and I think everybody's concern, is the operational expenses on the community center in general, not necessarily this issue. But then you're right, Mayor, that we gotta look at, we do have to operate, and if we're a person down, we're a person down. If this person comes back, then will we be overstaffed, or?
No, from what we had, what I was gonna propose, we would be right at staff of what I was gonna bring forward to for our 2018 budget.
Okay.
I think that's where we need to be.
Okay, and then the last question I have is, would we be able to do what you're asking without an amendment to the budget, or a, what do you call it, budget amendment?
I think at this point, looking at where I am with wages and looking at where we are with the budget, I think we can.
If you say yes, I can support it.
I feel pretty confident we can. Like you said, I have a pool starting,
That's
so.
closer than I think. So we're almost there. Almost.
I can make it happen if I need to
Okay.
cut back on my expenditures. I can work it in.
It's kind of like making a motion on a resolution. Councilor Mokel?
I'm assuming if this isn't approved, I mean, you're still gonna have to get a temporary worker, would you have to have the pay out there anyway? So it's really just looking at, where we wanna add this on and, understanding that. So, cause you're still gonna have the cost if they have sick time available, so that cost is still there. So.
And as Ms. Paula had stated, to her credit, we really have beat the bushes on all options. And, frankly, my direction initially and thoughts was is that this would go forward as part of the budget process. But, at this point, I think the logical and best course of action is to go ahead and fill it in this, create the position and the need.
Yeah.
Mayor, I just want to do it within the existing budget.
No, I agree.
Kick it all off.
It's 20,000, that's right.
Right, so should be no problem, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You got to no problem.
Any further discussion of questions of staff? If not, Councilor Mokel?
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of an additional full-time facilities maintenance worker at grade 2 of the 2017 non-union pay plan beginning immediately in 2017.
Second.
Councilor Whiting, second. Further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you very much. All right. Okay. Next up, one of my highlights, 10B1 monthly financial review. Aaron Nelson, welcome.
Glad I got one of you to enjoy this.
Did you want me to try to build consensus? Or?
Kept it off consent.
Right. Thank you, Mayor, council members. Probably not gonna, I can show the slide that's attached to your packet if you want. Otherwise, it's that same information that's in your attachment tonight. We can go through the revenues and the expenditures for the general fund at this point in time. Again, we're halfway through the year. This is through the June 30th report. So this is a good easy way to get a good feel for where we're at the midpoint of the year and such. Taxes came in, our first half tax payment came in June, so that shored up our taxes for obviously that first half that we're waiting for to get through to our June time frame. Our special assessments, that number is still a negative number for our actual revenue, and that is due, as I mentioned in the memo, due to our special assessments related to our delinquent garbage accounts. And so the delinquent garbage accounts that were assessed on property owners' taxes that last year, we collected 2 halves. And so we'll shore that up. We got the first half tax payment here in June, we'll get the second half in December. That'll take care of that delinquency or that variance at that point in time. So licenses and permits, another strong month. I think we had about $284,000 of revenue in June itself. We're sitting at about 75, a little over 75% of our original budget for licenses and permits. So with the status quo from here on out for the remainder of the year, we'll be expecting to exceed our original budget on that end of it. We will likely come in with an amended budget. When we do the 2018 budget, we'll do a revised 2017 budget where we'll account for those changes in revenues and expenditures as well too. But obviously licensing is one of those areas that we account for some additional revenue. Intergovernmental revenue is down a little bit. That's just due to the timing of some large payments. We get police and fire aid in October. That's about $500,000 or $600,000 between the two of them. So that kind of skews the formula there a little bit. And then we also received our MSA maintenance money, which I think just came out in July, the second half. I thought it came in later in the year, but it's actually July. So
It missed the 6-month cut.
it missed the 6-month cutoff. Yep, it'll show up. So that number percentage will tweak a little bit for the July financial analysis on the end of it. But other than that, the rest of them are right in line. We're sitting at 54% total revenues for the year. So that's all good. On the expenditure side of things, all departments are at or below their 50% threshold at this point in time, give or take that plus or minus 10%. I did want to point out one. So I went back to, since everything was kind of in line, I'm like, well, I got to find some variance here, or find something that jumps out a little bit. And street maintenance took on their seal coating and crack sealing projects back in May, June, July timeframe, and so we started making some payments to contractors on that. And so that did jump up to their higher end, but they were really low to begin with going into the June timeframe. So,
But some of those expenses are a lot of their expenses to begin with, so they're already paid. and-
absolutely. So those are
Right.
large contractor
Right.
payments that'll be said and done, or a good chunk of it is taken care of at this point. So, other than that, there wasn't really any other expenditures. As you've seen, that sitting at 46% halfway through the year, so we're sitting soundly at that point in time. So, any questions on the general funds?
Councilman Lehman?
Mayor, under expenses, you highlighted street maintenance at 58%, but I gotta say, finance is at 57. So,
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lehman, you hit me up on that last month on that one, but that was due to the assessment. We pay Scott County for our assessing services, and so that, I think that's like 200 and
It's a
some
lump sum
thousand.
and
It's a
it's
lump
not
sum
finance?
payment, yeah.
okay, so that'll be spread out over the
Yeah.
rest of the year.
So it's similar to how the council budget is high at the beginning of the year and comes back down, so.
Because all of our expenses go out for our memberships
Right.
at the beginning.
See how he turned that around on you?
Absolutely.
I appreciate the line item detail, but I look at the big picture as well. Revenues at 54% and the expenses at 46%. I like that. I wouldn't keep that coming.
Absolutely, absolutely. So then the additional piece of that, we looked at the community center piece that we've been looking at for most of the year now. And we've been looking at the ice arena and the community center, both the revenues and the expenditure side of things. Ice arena revenues are at just about $350,000 through the year. That's up about $160,000 compared to the same time last year. We received about $75,000 of private ice rental for various private camps and AAA type clubs and such like that. And that was for their ice rental times for basically the summer and early part of fall. So our ice rentals, those big chunks are probably accounted for at this point in time. Ice arena expenditures are remaining steady, obviously at an increased level. Did take a little bit more in-depth look at some of those expenditures, and we're looking at the electricity piece of that specifically, and noticed that we basically have 4 months of electricity accounted for in our books at this point in time. The first 2 months get coded back to the previous year because they were for services with delay in billing and such like that. So we had 4 months of services, and it was averaging about $14,000 a month. It was very consistent. It was literally a couple $100 either way of that $14,000. We have $84,000 budgeted. So when you extrapolate that 14,000, it comes to about 168,000, which is basically double what we budgeted for on that end of it. So we're obviously keeping an eye on that end of it. We looked at the community center piece of it. We should be sufficient on that end of it. We budgeted about $75,000 on the community center side. Extrapolating that right now, we'd come in below that amount, but we have the caveat of the pool coming online now too, so it's probably some additional electrical costs there as well too. So.
Get on budget plan.
So we need to hook the treadmills up to some kind of generator
That's
system.
a very good idea, yeah.
I like that.
So those are some of the items that, and those are some of the things that we knew kind of going into this that we were needed to keep an eye on, and we definitely will, as we move forward on this as well too, so. Community center revenues on that end of it are about those are also up about $160,000 or $157,000 compared to this time last year. So between the two, we're at $320,000 more than last year. So that's good news on that end of it. Membership sales are at $243,000 compared to $102,000, so that's a significant bump. And obviously the expenditures are running similar to last month as well too. We do expect to, like we mentioned before, to see a bump in that now once the pool is up, but we will see a certain bump in revenues as well too when the pool opens up.
Well, and I think
That's
the
gonna be-
membership sales will continue to drive.
Oh, absolutely.
Very strong with that facility. I was in it again today, and spectacular.
I think
So-
once fall rolls around, it's
Yeah.
gonna be an absolute zoo in the water park, which is good. That'll be exciting. So,
Well, we don't know our expenses because it hasn't, we're not running for a year.
absolutely, It's a learning curve for us.
I think the data that you're collecting on the community center is baseline stuff. Getting better every month, and obviously we're gonna enter, full operations here within the next, 30 or 60 days, and I think that'll help us in the long run. Other questions on this monthly financial review of Darren? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving ahead then to 10C1, final plat of Windmere, and Mr. Noble will present. Hi, Mark.
Hello, how's everybody? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the audience. It's an application for final plat for Windermere. And if you recall, the site is located south of 169, west of Marystown Road, essentially just extended west of where 17th Avenue or Casad 16 is. In April, the council saw a rezoning, re-guiding PUD and preliminary plat for the Windermere project. What's on the screen now is the preliminary plat, and that was approved in April. Since then, the applicant, D.R. Horton Inc., Minnesota, has moved forward with a grading permit consistent with previous plat approval, and now are in for final plat. And the final plat, I'll use this as the image. Final plat is for this portion of the project. It is for single family and townhouse development, and this is the larger overall final plat. The screen gets to the blue and then cuts to the chase. 26 single-family lots, 39 townhouse lots. There are 9 outlots, 2 of which, go to this drawing. This identifies the outlots. 2 of the outlots will be dedicated to the city for park purposes and for utility purposes. For example, this outlot, this will be, if you recall, an outlot it's for single family. They will not be able to plat that until development happens to the west of the site. This is an outlot for SPUC, for booster station. This is a future townhouse area. This is future single family. And then this is commercial to about this point, and this is future residential. So this is the first phase of their project. What is proposed is consistent with the preliminary plat and the PUD. Staff has received comments from a number of review agencies, and those comments, conditions have been incorporated into the resolution that is on the table for you. Staff does recommend approval, and as the council approve resolution 95 or 7911, resolution approving the final plat. Are there any questions?
Questions of staff? I'll start off. The road work, especially on 17, with this preliminary plat, where is that going to stop?
Road work will involve Marystown Road in this intersection area and a little bit further to the south,
Okay.
and will also be up, this is Windermere Way, which will be a road that will be part of the project. This road will also be part of the project, and 17th will, or Casas 16 will extend here. There will be some other utility works. What this screen shows is kind of the extent of the utility work, so.
Right, but I'm just saying that like 17th Avenue that goes to the west there will, the development, it will stop there and kind of be a dead end.
Yes.
For a while, until those further outlots or further development, right?
Until further development to the west.
Okay. Other questions of staff? Councilor Raymond?
We had a pretty lengthy council discussion on this the last time around, and it was centering around the homeowners association and what we wanted to see in that agreement.
And it's in here.
And I think it was, if I remember, our concern was specific about the roads.
Telling the residents of the Town Home Association that the roads are their responsibility forever and cannot be conveyed to the city, and
Right.
I read it in the homeowners association agreement,
So
and I was looking for it.
I was too. So I just wanted to make sure that the issues that this body had with that being what we've seen in the past with past developments that had private roads that after 40 years or something break up and association didn't plan on their future maintenance needs. And the residents come to us saying, what are you gonna do about your road? It's not a road. So we wanted to make it crystal clear to whoever's buying these homes, and the applicant in this case was at that meeting and said they were gonna write it into the agreement crystal clear. So I just wanted to make sure that we covered that basis.
So I found on page 4 of the homeowners agreement, section 121, private streets all means all streets, cul-de-sacs, other roadways within the community that are private streets for use of the owners, occupants, and guests, and not dedicated as public streets. So the city, I have looked for more verbiage about true maintenance responsibility, and I didn't circle them here, and I'm not gonna say it's vague, but,
Is it a plow?
you know, huh?
Who plows it?
Private roadways.
Private roadway.
Okay, does it say that in here?
Yep, so if you're part of the association, part of your fees are going to long-term maintenance, or going to plowing, standard upkeep.
For the council's information and for the members of the audience, public street will be the 17th Avenue, Casas 16. Windermere Way will be a public street. This is Willow Circle, which is a public street. And this area is a private drive. It's identified on the drawing as Windigo Lane, but that is actually part of a lot that will be the responsibility of the association. So it's not a public road.
And the Councilor Mokel?
As long as we're talking about private roads, do they have guest parking or parking only in those areas that's just for residents?
I believe there are some spaces
Okay.
available. The applicant is here and can speak to that.
Because mine isn't loading, so I can't see.
Mr. Sewell? The applicant, answer questions?
Good evening, Mike Sewell, D.R. Horton Homes. We do have some off-street or not on-street parking for guest parking or for visitors. We also have drivers where they fit 2 cars in front and 2 cars in the garage. And our declaration doesn't allow people to park cars overnight in the guest spots. So it's policed with the association, with our association managers. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay.
If I was a guest, though, I'd have to park on their driveway.
If it's overnight, and now the board down the road can institute some type of a 24-hour guest pass or something. Some of our neighborhoods have done that where the family comes to visit for a few days. They have little cards that you can put in your dash to signify that you have a guest pass, but it's not for reoccurring parking.
Okay.
and it doesn't allow any boat storage, camper storage, trailers, so all that either has to be in the garage or you'll have to find another spot to store.
Counselor Whiting?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out in section 9 on page 16, it does talk about maintenance of the association. The association shall provide for all maintenance, repair, and replacement, collectively referred to as maintenance, of all common elements and improvements therein, including private streets, private street lights, and to the extent such lights are not maintained by the city. Then also on that same section, under item number I,
Yep.
provide for snow removal on private streets and driveways and private public sidewalks. So it's pretty well spelled out in here.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
That's your phone.
And if I could just add, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
The legislator just last year passed another amendment to the common interest communities where, as a declarant, we have to provide a detailed maintenance budget as part of our documents to before we start selling homes. So we do have a draft and we do have money in there to seal coat the roads and then also to repair and overlay. So we do recognize the need to maintain roads going forward.
Thank you. Other questions of the applicant? Mr. Sewell, thank you. More questions of staff? Let's proceed. Counselor Lehman?
I'll offer resolution 7911, approving the final plat of Windermere as presented in the
I have a motion and Counselor Whiting second. Discussion? Discussion, I guess, before we vote. This is a combination of a lot of time and effort, and I believe this area, this development has been in the works for over 10 years, so. Yep, congratulations to, I think it's a benefit to our community, and also congratulations to D.R. Horton for hanging tough.
Mr. Mayor, I also want to thank D.R. Horton and Mr. Sewell for taking care of some of our concerns that we've had in the past with some other private areas and private roads and things. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to the agreement.
Further discussion, motion on the table in a second. Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank you and your staff for all the hard work. It's like the mayor said, it's been 10+ years, but we think we're there, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Moving up, 10C2, award of bids and proposals for downtown improvement. Mr. Kurski, welcome.
Evening, Mayor and Council. This is following up here. You remember back in June, we had approval to advertise the bids. We're at the red date, which is July 18th tonight, for City Council approval of the award. This is the project. Haven't made any significant changes in it. Still moving forward. So back, this is the alley that will be assessed. The parking lot is not part of the assessment. And then the only minor change, and we'll be working with WSB and RJM on this, is we'll be at the entrance gateway feature, which is up here. We were able to get Chief Shakopee relief by artist Denny Haskew. He's a member of the National Sculpture Guild in Loveland, Colorado. This is actually owned by the SMSC right now, so we would still need an agreement with them. It would be disassembled, and the artist would restore and reinstall this on a new pedestal, possibly out of Casota stone, and we're going to work with the SMSC on how this gets transferred to us, and also how they pay for the restoration of the piece. It's currently in storage. So that would actually be mounted right here. So it'd be, the word Shakopee, if you remember, is right here. You'll see it in a second. It would be behind that in this landscape bed.
Raised and elevated.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Person, did you talk about the size of that statue?
I didn't have a measure when we looked at, this is about, I think, 7 or 8 feet.
It's 1.5
Life size.
life size. So it's a large.
Significant.
It's
And then
very
it will be raised off the ground
Yes,
several
correct.
feet
Correct.
to.
So it would go, so it would sit the feet would basically be about at this level, so it would be sitting about like this behind the workshop. So we'll be bringing an agreement from the SMSC back to you, transfer ownership of that, wherever they want to do it with us, along with hopefully funding to restore. And then again, here are the other elements that still are. This is the Gateway Plaza by O'Brien's. This is the downtown sign. This is the only change, and we've been working with RJM on this and WSB. We had originally planned on doing concrete sidewalks. Concrete came in fairly expensive. This is something we're exploring. This is actually a plastic material that's heated into the asphalt. And so we'll be working with RJM and their subcontractors on getting this done. We had a bid from an out-of-state company. We have located 2 companies in state that could do this, and that would be our preference. They've had experience working in Minnesota. This is the other big piece that is fully bid out. So this is the new sign that would go here. So this would be a reader board that would be able to advertise any city events, so anything going on in the park or in downtown, Huber Park or downtown, will be able to be advertised on this along with any messages the city wants to push out. So if there's a public hearing on the budget, whatever, all of that can be programmed into the screen. So it would be similar to what most of the other cities around here have.
Because people are dying to come to our budget meetings.
The lights, so here's the bids, so these are the categories. The only change since the bids were opened is down here. Arteca was the low bidder. RJN met with them and they had a number of mistakes on their bids, so they have withdrawn their bid. This bid's, I think, about $2,000 more. For urban companies, they are also the earthwork and utility company, so they will already be on site. And they're recommending we go with them and not Arteca since they cannot meet their bid. And these are the other categories for miscellaneous items for surveying, temporary fencing, traffic control, painting, metals. And here was the set aside we currently have for the crosswalk, and I think we have another $5,000 in there for lining. So we will hold that money out and we'll work on getting a new price for those particular items. But all the specialty pavement and concrete work on all of that survived the budget. So we are at $1,903,357. There is a memo from RJM. There were some changes that recommended we have to accept the bids as they are, but the concrete contractors recommended a number of changes which WSB has agreed can be done. So that money will actually roll into the budget, so we'll have a larger contingency going forward. I think of about $80,000 or $90,000 going into the project. Brad, who's been working on this from RJM, is here to answer any specific questions.
Thank you. Questions of staff? What aren't we getting, Mr. Kursky?
The only thing that's been held out is the concrete sidewalks.
And then the alley is not specifically part of this project or in this budget. It's separate, but the work's going to be done simultaneously?
Mayor and Council, that number is in this budget. So
The number, I apologize.
It is in this budget, and we will be breaking out the demolition, concrete work, and other utility work that's involved in that alley, and that'll be assessed back to the property owners. We'll be paying 70% plus a little extra because we own 3/4 of one side of the alley. Mr. Loney and I talked, and we'll be getting back a number for that assessment.
Mr.
And if you'll recall, Mayor, we had the downtown money set aside of $1.5 million. The reason we have the budget, a little under $2 million, is because of the alley, which is part of stormwater fees and other things. So that's how we,
I got that.
that's how we have
Okay.
it.
Counselor Lewis?
You just stated that they were gonna be billed back at 30%. I thought that was before we raised the 30, it's supposed to be 25 on that L.
Yes, that's
We just made a change.
Just
Yeah,
want to change it.
wasn't the alley you got to redo before change.
We'll check on that.
Yeah, I think that alley was
25%
25.
is before.
I think you're right, Councilor Lewis. I think that alley is at 25.
We agreed on that
It was
a
agreed
couple
at.
weeks ago,
Yep,
so.
yep.
So it'll be at 25%.
Other questions of staff? Counselor Whiting?
Just probably not for this discussion, but we talk about that sign, community events and things. I'm
of that will not be able to advertise private businesses on there. It's strictly city events or special messages we need to send out to the community if there's something.
So it would be just strictly city.
Other questions of staff? This is a culmination of a lot of work again here, 10 years. Councilor Luce?
The statue, is that going to become property of the city, or is that just going to be on the wall?
Mayor and council, we need to work that out with the SMSC. Our preference would be that it would be ours. It's going to be installed on our property. But we have discussed with them. I've been in contact actually with the artist in Colorado who's got something lined up, and we've got an estimate which we're going to give to the SMSC of what it would cost to be disassembled, shipped back to Colorado, recoded and cleaned up and sent back to us and installed here. So they're aware.
That would be on us or on?
We have suggested to the SMSC that that would be on.
Councilor Lehman?
Does this thing have, the statue have any major sentimental value to the tribe?
I believe so.
I'd hate to see it get damaged or something. I mean, do you want a replica or something, or?
It is bronze. It's would be very hard to damage. And I think right now it's being stored in a barn. Mr. Owens and I went and looked at it. It was installed about 15 years ago in the roundabout. And I'll tell you, bronzes require some long-term maintenance, so they have to be waxed about every 5 or 6 years to keep the patina. That really would be about it. It's a pretty. It needs a crane. That's how heavy that is to be moved out of that barn. So it's not a lightweight.
Tree branch ain't gonna take it down
No.
or something? Okay.
This piece of public art and the donation from our local neighboring community has been an effort that Mr. Reynolds has played a role in. And
Well, the truth, Mayor, is that Mr. Kursky's been leading this effort and has been in contact with the tribe. We all have been out there on multiple occasions to discuss it, and it's extremely generous of the tribe. I don't know what it cost to make this statue, but it probably exceeds our budget for it.
and so the staff has worked on it a lot, and some of these not little details, but the details that need to get worked out. But if we're going to bring back a big piece of history of our community to make it an area of the downtown, a draw of historic portion like most other cities, this is almost the perfect thing to have.
Mayor and council will say WSB and folks in public works and our engineering staff along with RJM have done yeoman service to get this on budget and get it constructed this year.
Other questions of staff?
Just one
Mr.
final
Reynolds?
comment, sir. You'll recall the next piece of this is the statue of Reverend Pond that we would like at some point. And frankly, that would be a public effort. I kind of put it akin to the Statue of Liberty, where France gave us one piece, and then the citizens of the United States then collected pennies at the time to build the pedestal for that. So as we look at the Reverend Pond statue, which would then be in front, essentially close to where the Christmas tree is now, we'll be coming out with some details and some preliminary design work. But there are multiple people in the community, including one that is sitting in our audience right now, who's been looking for these kinds of projects where the community could get behind. And I will be giving you a call, Jody, so we can discuss that in a little more detail in the future. But that obviously would take some longer time and more work. But that's the general concept of where we are.
Awesome. Long time making for this effort, so further questions of staff? If not, I'll put a motion on the table and discuss. Councilor Whiting?
Make a motion to approve the bid tabulations and award the low bidders the contract work for the downtown improvements and award work for proposals as outlined by RJM, except to allow the city and RJM flexibility on the final choice for crosswalk textures in the amount not to exceed $50,000, and to also award the landscaping contract to Urban.
Yeah. Motion and a second by Councilor Mokel. Discussion. I think this infrastructure plan is the right thing to do. I think this is what communities do. I think there's some direct benefits to the community as a whole. The welcome sign, which I don't know. I drive around a lot. Every community has them, large and small. I think that's important. Piece of public art. Also, our rundown alley that hasn't been maintained. Concrete alley that we've started to improve our alley work because we have some poor alleys. The electronic signs is kind of the wave of the future. Cities invest in their downtown, and Shakopee has from time to time. I believe this is one of the largest investments in infrastructure that the city has taken, and I think it is right. Councilor Whiting?
Mr. Mayor, I want to make sure that folks at home know that this is not a project that we're taking out of this year's budget. This is something we saved for. We put this money away, set aside for the past several years until we could build up enough funds to do this project. And so we've known that we're planning on doing something here. Some of the details may go back and forth, but it's been known about. It's sitting in a fund waiting to do this project. So I'm excited about this. The statue we talked about is icing on the cake. It's going to be a great addition to it. So I look forward to seeing this through.
Discussion? Councilor Lewis?
Well, you commented that we've got an alley there that's been neglected. Who neglected it?
The
City.
No, and,
Yeah. That's
you know,
all done.
even the alleys. I mentioned alleys plural, and we're trying to get on a system here where we can rehabilitate them, and we did one last year. I have a chance to do one again this year. Maybe next year we'll do this one. I think that the alleys have been run down, and same with the parking lot, for that matter. And to refresh that and bring it up to speed for another 20, 30 years or longer, I think that's the right thing to do. Councilor Lehman.
I don't disagree. The parking lot needs to be fixed, and I think fixing up the alleys is a good thing too. I think the city has an obligation to maintain its infrastructure. The question in my mind is all the other fluff that goes with it, okay? And yeah, Councilor Whiting is correct. It's not that the city took the taxpayers' money one year, they took it for multiple years and set it aside to do a lot of things that are above and beyond, in my opinion, of the basic infrastructure needs. The fluff, I call it. When there's improvements around my house, on the street, I get to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we've got a different scenario downtown. When the original downtown streetscape was done, it wasn't done the same as any other neighborhood in town. It had the little pavers and stuff, which were expensive maintenance long term. Them assessments were challenged and they didn't get assessed. So, you know, it's nice to have a nice downtown. It's nice to maintain your infrastructure, but there's a balance. On one side, we have to be responsible with the taxpayers' money and maintain our infrastructure, and you know, then there's the other side where it could be argued that you're paying for a lot of fluff that's not necessarily government's responsibility. So
I appreciate that. You know,
either way, it will be nice when it's
right.
done.
We're not spending $50 million like Nicollet Avenue on a redo on that. You know, bigger city, different city. I just think that this enhances our brand. Our brand is the city of Shakopee, and I don't think there are times in our community or in our downtown that we fully invest in our brand in certain ways. And downtown is part of our identity. We just did a workshop 6 months ago, and we talked about what is it, or when we got the survey back, what is it about our community? Everybody, I love our small town feel. I love the downtown. Everybody says it. I've been hearing that for 30 years. And if we had a new fresh coat of paint or some new concrete, I think that's part of, you know, rebuilding the infrastructure that you haven't done. Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, I think you're partially correct, I partially agree with you. I think there's areas of town that have that exact same philosophy for their particular area, Southbridge being one of them. I think the residents in Southbridge take that same approach to their area of town. And I think that the folks up around the 169 Marshall Road have that same philosophy for their area of town. The thing to me is that we're treating different areas of town differently. And you know, if we're gonna start going to these other areas and making these same kinds of improvements, it's gonna get really expensive for the taxpayers. It's not just gonna be 3 years, let's save up for a $2 million project. Let's do $30 million and save up for 5 or 6 different projects. You know, so I'm the conservative person here saying, let's take care of our infrastructure. We've had these CIP discussions and come up with revenue streams of a new tax on energy for that purpose. So, you know, the bottom line is somebody's paying for it. It's always the taxpayers, and somebody has to be their champion because their money is not just infinite.
No, I understand.
And every year their little piece of gold just keeps getting taken and taken and taken, and then we talk about affordable housing. It's not affordable when half of your paycheck is going to government for something. There's a balance. There's a balance.
Councilor Lewis?
Well, at what point do we expect that one of those different areas is gonna come to us and say that? You know, Southbridge carries their own water all the time. Cub or that area up there, for the most part, other than Beerling Drive, we had to reconstruct that a few times, but that was our fault because it wasn't constructed properly to take the traffic volumes because nobody could figure out what the traffic volumes were gonna be. You know, but I can see somewhere down the road, as Councilor Lehman said, that these different areas are gonna come with their hands out, and they have every right to figure they're gonna get something.
You're too far into this project to do anything other than what you're doing now. So,
Well,
we'll just pass it
again,
along.
let's be mindful that this investment is in our downtown, which is you know, I think the founding part of our town is within 500 feet of where we sit today. Is that correct, history buffs? You know, the downtown is the identity of the city. Councilor Mokel?
And I think that's where you're correct, is that even if you live in Southbridge or by the hospital or in Dean's Lake, you still want to be investing into your downtown. There are plenty of residents that say they wanted those improvements even though they lived in those areas. So to say that, you know, we're somehow neglecting those areas because we're putting that money into the downtown is the heart of the city.
I
It
didn't
is
say
our
we were
identity.
neglecting anybody.
Well, yeah.
Or your words, not mine.
Councilor Lewis?
Well, and I sat in a meeting today for residents with the Diversity Alliance, and there's a number of them there from Southbridge, and they're saying that for the first 6 years they lived here, they didn't know anything about downtown. We need to do a better job of publicizing, branding, and making people aware of downtown, because the majority of people, if they don't live anywhere within 10 blocks of here, they don't know what's
Well,
down there.
I hope that some of these improvements, if this gets passed, actually draws them here for the history, the culture, and I hope that folks of all around our community come. Tomorrow night's is an opportunity to showcase our community. It is in the downtown. It's going to go on for 5 weeks. I want people to draw to our downtown, and that's the strength of the brand. And you know, you live in Southbridge, you get busy with your lives, you commute to work. There's Walmart there or other stores there. You can do your shopping. I don't need to go. Get connected. Get into the community and find out where those activities are, and come. Mainly, they're, you know, I don't see Southbridge isn't having music things. It's usually in most cities right in the core downtown, and I feel that that's what we're doing. I feel that's what we're investing in. But
Johnny Cash tomorrow night, right?
huh?
Johnny Cash is tomorrow night?
Is that called that?
Okay, yeah, it's music based on him. Did you have another comment?
I just wanted to finish your commercial for Rhythm on the Rails downtown, starting tomorrow night,
Right.
Wednesday night.
Yeah,
And
6
going on
o'clock?
for the next 5 weeks.
5 weeks, every Wednesday.
Different
starting-
music. And,
Yeah, different
events
music.
going on.
Yeah.
I think it's around 5 o'clock.
5, 6 o'clock it starts, and
And the business have giveaways.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
giveaways downtown, so come down if you haven't seen our downtown, check it out. There's my commercial.
I appreciate that.
Call the question.
Motion on the table and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, 4-1. Thank you very much.
Well, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'm glad that we just had that a discussion, because that really mirrors kind of the discussion that we had this morning with MKSK. And as we look forward to our comprehensive plan that we've hired for them to work on with us. It's a pretty exciting time for staff, because this is the real opportunity where we can hopefully bring the community together to talk about where we're going to go in the future. And you know, Eric has done a lot of work on this, preparing us up to this point. MKSK and its associates will be meeting with multiple people and multiple organizations in the next 6 to 8 months. They're here for a couple days, and they're meeting between 15, 20 different groups in the next couple days, but this is just the beginning. So if you haven't been contacted, if you're not on the list today or tomorrow, you know, we want you on the list, because the whole goal is to get this whole community at the table and talk about our future, our collective future. So again, pretty excited to begin this process, and with that being said, MKSK
there it is.
will now give us a presentation and talk a little bit about what we talked about this morning and where we're headed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome.
Thank you. Mayor and council members, it's great to be here this evening, and we'll share a brief introduction to our process to the update to the comprehensive plan for 2040. Our approach to the comprehensive plan in any community, and particularly in Shakopee, is building on the strengths of the community. So when we start this process, what we want to understand is what are the assets that we can build on as part of this process? What are the qualities of Shakopee that make it unique, that separate it, distinguish it maybe from other communities in the region? What is beloved, what's treasured in Shakopee, and how can we build on that? How can we preserve those qualities, and how can we build on that when we look ahead to the future? And so even though we've been engaged just for a very short time initially here in the project, we've started to get exposed and have some experience with some of those qualities. So I have just a few images here from the discussions and some of the visits we've had. Of course, you have what, in the words of some folks we've talked to, is really the envy of a lot of communities in the region with your commercial and light industrial base. So everything from Rara Maltings, who's been growing with the city for 80 plus years, to Emerson and Seagate that have invested here, is tremendous from an employment standpoint, from an economic development standpoint, and really an asset that's recognized throughout the region. We also, from a quality of life standpoint, have tremendous parks, open space, trails. You can see some images here from Lion Park and from Dean Lake. And there's really just a wonderful network of these that serve the community and really create a tremendous quality of life. Likewise, the entertainment and the recreation. So you can see a couple examples here from Valley Fair and that corridor, which really includes, you know, some amenities that may be just outside formally the city boundaries, but are part of a larger destination of the region in terms of Mystic Lake and Renaissance Fair, of course Valley Fair in the city. Those are an asset which, you know, both from, and this is interesting in our discussions, you know, you think about some of these as drawing visitors, but heavily used by local residents as well, get season passes, et cetera. So it's great to see that it's serving both the local population and your visitor as well. Some of your other events, I was surprised to learn that ostriches raced at Canterbury Park, and I hope to see that at some point. I have family in Shakopee, and I'll be here for the week visiting, so I'm looking forward to coming out to Rhythm on the Rails and learning a little bit more about the city. But that was very cool to see people riding on ostriches in these images. You know, in some of the other events, we talked about Derby Days and how, you know, Chaco Valley originally was one of the signature community events, and then Derby Days, you know, sort of took over from there, and that continues to evolve, which is great to see how the community continues to find ways to have those events that bring people together. And one of the things that came out loud and clear was the quality of Shakopee with respect to the residents. And just the great, you know, some of the words we heard were the homey feel that you have in Shakopee. It was fascinating to learn that you have families whose ties go back well over a century in Shakopee. You know, some anecdotes about people who meet, and particularly if they get married in Shakopee, tend to stay in Shakopee. So just a tremendous amount of pride from the residents and the folks that live here in their community and in their neighborhood. And so this is not by any means a comprehensive list of what's great about Shakopee, but our goal, particularly at the outset here today, tomorrow, and as we get our feet wet in this process, is to get as broad of an understanding as possible of what these assets are, a very nuanced understanding of that, so that we can build on those and start to leverage those for the greater good of the community as we look ahead as part of this planning process.
And our downtown you just heard about.
And your downtown, that's right. This diagram shows the structure of how we're going to move ahead with this. So our task, our charge, our work is for the city of Shakopee. It is for the elected leaders of the community, your constituents, your professional staff. We will be working directly with you and with the greater community in developing material throughout this comprehensive plan process. And I wanted to introduce just briefly the team that's with us here tonight. So my name again is Darren Meyer with MKSK. We are a city planning and landscape architecture firm. And we're partnering on this effort with HRNA Advisors. We have Bob Giolis and Aaron Lonoff. And HRNA is a leader in looking at real estate economics and economic development. And then Justin and Andrew are my colleagues with MKSK. We'll be helping lead the process. And not here tonight, but an important part of the team is Tool Design Group, who adds transportation planning expertise. So collectively, we are going to partner with the city and with the greater community to develop these recommendations. So as Mr. Reynolds mentioned earlier, you see on the left, again, not a comprehensive list, but we're going to spend extensive time talking to residents, the businesses in the community, hospitality and tourism, schools, arts, transportation, all of the facets of the community, so that we get as broad of a cross-section as possible and have as many conversations and touch as many people as possible in this process, so that we can best understand the dynamics, the nuances, the aspirations of the community, and start to align those with recommendations of the plan. Yes, a little bit. Nothing's coming down from the ceiling.
Just wait. No, we'll get a hard hat the other one.
So at the end of the day, the comprehensive plan update is going to serve several very important needs for the city. So first and foremost, we want this to be a visionary document. We want it to truly capture what the community would like to see for the future of their community as we look towards the next decades, towards 2040, and make sure that the spirit of the community is reflected in this. And that can do a couple things for you. So that allows you to showcase the community. And you mentioned the downtown before, and I think you used the word brand. This document is not just something that's used to guide land use regulation. It's something that you can use to attract private investment, to promote your brand, to share within the region, and have that be a great tool for promoting the community. Leveraging assets. So we've had a lot of conversations, even starting today, about how great the entertainment aspect is of the region with Valley Fair and Canterbury. And we've talked a little bit about downtown, and the fact that those may not fully leverage each other in terms of the visits that are made, the time that you spend here, how you chain your trips, and what destinations you go to within the community. If you're coming for one event, do you go to another? So how do we sort of cross-pollinate?
10 million visitors come to 4 major recreation entertainment venues in our city, and how do we get them to stay a night, stay 2 nights, so.
have a bite to eat.
How to do that.
Yep, exactly. And then guide investments. Any kind of long-term planning effort, whether it's a master plan for an academic campus, whether it's a comprehensive plan for a community, one of the key things that that does is that allows you to say, we've spent some significant time having conversations with community to better understand what their goals and priorities are. And our intent is to align our investments with those priorities that we've heard from the community. And so that as we make individual decisions, whether it's streetscape improvements or other investments, we have some level of confidence that those are building towards a greater goal and towards a greater vision. So it's a tool that helps you guide those small investments over the years. And not the least important, but lastly, it does inform the technical work of this body in terms of basing some decisions on material that's prepared as part of this plan. So there are a number of benefits that will come out of having this plan at the end of the day. And this gives you a little snapshot of our process. I'm going to open it up for discussion, and as we get any questions or thoughts that you have, I will invite staff and my colleagues to help answer any questions that you may have.
Great. We actually conducted a pretty big survey here 9 months ago and a year ago that I think that MKSK could use, if you haven't seen it already. A little snapshot of what our residents feel. It was mainly towards, city government, the city, but I think you could glean out a lot of helpful information. I think that is still fresh and relevant information, especially to learn more about our strengths, and trying to take, as we do, try to take those opportunities and build on and try to change the perceptions. Usually reality and perception are, you want them close together, and sometimes they're not, and the whole idea was to try to bring those closer together. So I think that might be some helpful information to help in this process.
We'll definitely review that.
At some point in the future, Mr. Mayor and council members, they will sit down with all of you individually to pick your brains and to get your thought processes on where you see us in the future, and also talk extensively about the assets that we have and how we use those to the best that we can and move the organization forward. So you can expect that to happen as well.
Other comments, discussion, Councilor Lehman?
When I'm looking at your presentation, is it safe for me to assume that more on the technical side is where you get into the stormwater runoff, sewer increase capacity, these types of issues, or that's normally what's in a full-fledged comp plan update?
Yes, there are a number of technical components to the comp plan which will absolutely be covered as part of our process.
As we discussed when we first were looking at this, we really wanted this to be a document that was used. And so it will have technical elements to it, as required, but it's going to be a lot more than that. It really, hopefully, is going to be the guiding document for this organization as we move forward. So it's not just going to sit on a shelf.
And as I said earlier, the most really important to me is that government is doing what its role is, and then the free market private sector is doing its role.
Other comments, discussion? What are your next steps?
Well, we have a full day tomorrow of, again, meeting and having some more conversations. And then this process is going to span into early next year. So we'll have several touch points with the community throughout that, but we're just getting rolling.
Would your group ever sit down with the council in a workshop session and have open discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Other Councilor?
Just look forward to seeing what some of the sums of all these meetings come up to be, and what our community is thinking, and how we do showcase the community and utilize some of those tools for growing the community in the next 10 to 20 years.
Right.
So yeah, I look forward to it.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councilor Lehman?
Short recess.
Second.
Oh,
that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion,
7 months?
second, no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll stand in recess for 8 minutes. Welcome, and we'll reconvene this July 18, 2017 City of Shakopee City Council meeting. And we are on 10D1, Fire Relief Pension Guideline and 2017 benefit increase. And Mr. Nelson will present. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Before you tonight is a resolution to consider a pension guideline for the Shakopee Fire Relief Association along with an increase for 2017. A little bit of history on this subject is that the Shakopee Fire Department Relief Association passed a resolution at their June meeting to request the City Council to consider a pension benefit guideline along with a pension benefit increase for 2017. The last pension benefit increase was passed by the City Council back in December of 2013, and that was a 3-year agreement that called for a $100 per year annual pension increase for the years 2014, 2015, and 2016. And that brought the pension up to $7,800 per year of service respectively on that end. So that's where they're at currently. The previous increases to that point in time dated back to 2005, so there was a long lag between the 2005 and the 2014 time frame. A little more history is as of December 31st, 2012, the fire relief pension was about 96% funded and required a state contribution beyond the fire state aid payment that year. Since that time, the Shakopee Fire Relief Association has hired a financial advisor that specializes in fire reliefs, and their rate of return has increased substantially since that point in time. And in addition, our fire state aid, which is commonly referred to as our that 2% insurance proceeds that gets passed through from the state of Minnesota that is required to go to the fire relief, that amount has basically doubled since 2010. So from about $123,000 in 2010 to $246,000 this past year. The pension fund itself has been 100% funded since 2013. The city has not contributed any additional amounts to the pension since 2014. And as of the end of this past year, 2016, the pension sits at currently at 114.4% funded, which is a healthy balance at that point. So, in discussions with the Fire Relief Board itself, we initially looked at lump sum payments, and me kind of representing both the fire relief side of it and the city side of it, I wasn't necessarily comfortable with a large lump sum amount, and kind of wanted to figure out a way to make it more routine and smaller increases on that end of it. So we came up with this idea. Another fire relief district had implemented something similar to this, where it was kind of systematic increases that are a little bit smaller, but still are able to protect both the city itself and also provide some known benefit potential for the fire relief itself as well. The goal of this strategy is to ensure that the Fire Relief Association remains fully funded, so there wouldn't be any additional city contribution at that point in time. And so what we're recommending is the Fire Relief wants to come forward with a schedule that bases it on the funding coverage percentage. So whatever the assets exceed the liabilities. So I mentioned we were at that 114.4% funding as of December 31st, 2016. That's the funding coverage percentage that we're talking about. Is that we're talking about the assets of the pension fund exceeding the liabilities. And so we came up with a graduated scale that said, okay, the bottom scale is if it's 112%, less than 112%, there would be no increase for the following year. And so it's got to be above that 112% funded before we even consider bringing a request forward to the council. And so then we would graduate it if it's 112 to 117, it's a 3% increase, 117 to 122 is a 4% increase, kind of so on and so forth until you get to like 127%, where it would be a 6% increase. And so this is assuming that if you're at those percentages that there's no additional city contribution necessarily taking place. It's only the state aid dollars that are flowing through from the state to the city and then on to the fire relief for investment in their pension. there are some further stipulations that we kind of incorporated with the resolution as well, is that the amounts would be rounded to the nearest $25 amount increment, just to make calculations a little bit simpler. And then also if that there should be no increases in the pension benefit for 1 year after the last mandatory city contribution. So ideally, the city would not have to contribute anything beyond the fire relief awards. There are state aid that we've been talking about, but there could be unforeseen circumstances. The market takes a substantial hit, investments are going to fall, and it has happened before, will happen again in the future, but we're doing our best to protect ourselves with that by having 112% in there. The stipulation is that it would take an additional year after the last city contribution before we would consider an additional increase to the pension benefit. The pension or the funding coverage percentage would be is calculated by the Relief Association's auditors in conjunction. They do a lot of, so that's audited financial statements, so it's not the fire relief just saying, you know, we're this percent, it's actual audited numbers that are coming from the auditors. So, and any future increases have to come to the council as well too. We'll have this guideline, potentially have this guideline in place, but we still have to, fire relief would still have to come forward to the council to get an annual increase in place. This would just kind of give the guideline that says, okay, next year if we're at 115%, we would recommend that, again, that 3% increase at that point in time.
Councilor Lehman?
3 questions. First one is, so hypothetical market hit, then benefits at that point, if there's a loss, would be frozen?
Correct.
Okay. Second question, expanding firefighters, we add new ones. How does that calculate into this?
That would affect their funding coverage percentage. So if we increase the number of firefighters, paid on-call firefighters that are eligible for the fire relief, that plays into that basically number that is into the liability. So each new firefighter creates a liability. They're not vested until, they don't become vested until they're like 5 years down the road, and they become partially vested and such like that.
Okay.
So there is a.
And then the last question that I came up with was, is it retroactive? So let's say that you're at 117% and there's a 4% increase, and somebody has 10 years in. Is that increase retroactive?
It's to all their years of service. So if a member retires with 20 years of service, it's based off of that, whatever, the last year of what that is. So they would get the 20 years times their, whatever the pension benefit is that current
Is
year.
that how it is today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then, just to make sure, 2 clarifications, you stated in 2012 it was funded at 96% and required a state contribution. Your memo says city contribution.
Yes, we required a city contribution.
Okay.
Yes, I meant
Okay.
city, sorry about that.
And then the $8,025 in the memo is what's supposed to be in the resolution.
Absolutely, that's
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
the
Mr.
error.
Reynolds mentioned at the beginning of the meeting.
Right.
So,
Last line in section 10.
yep, correct,
The memo's right, the resolution's wrong.
Yeah.
correct.
$8,025 is the correct amount. I have some questions. So if it's at 102, if it's over 100%, we still don't have to contribute and they don't get an increase. Are we
Correct.
required to fund to 100%? So if it takes a hit back down to 96, we'd be required to bring that to 100?
You're not required to bring it to 100 that next year. You're required to contribute, so you can amortize that
To get to
over a few years to get up to
To get 100.
Up to that 100.
And so I just want to, trying to be careful here because obviously the firefighters of volunteer, they're our group, we're part of the administration of their, even though they have their own committee, we're overseeing that benefit we're guaranteeing the funding of it. They're over now, but I've seen a lot of these where they go sour and cities have to pay And, you know, I think that the percentages have increased over the last couple of years, or not necessarily because of the market, just because of more awareness, right? Because there were unfunded liabilities for a long time in the old days. And so I'm trying to look at this about trying to protect the city from and do fiscally responsible things for the retired firefighters as well.
And I would say, Mr. Mayor, you know, I think the investment advisor that they brought on board specializes in fire relief pensions and such like that, and really got a key focus on, you know, minimizing risk but maximizing return as well.
Councilor Lewis?
You know, we're talking percentages. What is the total fund balance? So we got an idea of what we're talking about for a percentage. I mean, 3% is, you know, can be a broad range.
So they have, at the end of, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Luce, at the end of 2016, Fire Relief had assets of $5.6 million and a pension benefit obligation of $4.9 million.
When you say 4.9 million, that's for firefighters who have retired, or?
That's the pension obligation at that point.
That's the ones that we still have.
Everybody that's
They
on,
retire right now.
right,
Yeah.
yep, they retired right now. So they have about $707,000 difference between the liabilities and the
Not
assets.
market correction can eat that up.
It can, and I think that's why, you know, we talked about the 112%, and really I did some research with the state auditor's office, which does a lot with the fire relief and such, and a statewide average for what we have as lump sum payment defined benefit pension is that 112% is basically where the state average is at. Everybody's over, you know, not everybody's over that, but that's where the average is. That's where a lot of the departments lie. So that kind of gave us a little bit of breathing room there that, you know, if there is a correction, maybe there's
1%
enough in there.
correction would just about eat up the difference.
You could look at
Well,
that, but at what I was trying to bring up,
10%.
that their increase would go away at 112% or less, or less than 112%. But my big question in the market correction then, when's the liability start with the city? And that's below 100, and then we could take a couple years to stabilize that.
Right, yeah, you can amortize it over, I think it's up to 10 years, I believe, but I'm not certain.
And obviously, there's been some improvements if we're at 114.4, but.
And I think the state aid dollars too coming in is increased a lot, and that's based off of property in the city, and we've been growing as well too, so.
They're usually in a municipality of any type, the excess money that we have that is sitting in reserves is, there's investments that we can't buy because they're too risky. You know, I buy super safe stuff, T-bills and stuff like that. Is this fund got similar guidelines on that as far as risk adverse investments?
Mr. Mayor, they do have guidelines. It's a little bit, it's not as stringent as the city side of it, but they do have a little bit more, there are guidelines, but it's.
And this is a standalone fund as an independent, and some cities do this, right, or fire departments do this, and then there's also a state fund too that they could join as well, right?
Yep, they could. Fire relief is not part of that.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Councilor Lewis?
The fire relief board, they basically manage it, you just oversee to make sure
Yeah.
they're doing it by law.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So we include in our financial statements, we include a fire relief pension note. Since the city is basically obligated to provide that pension, we are required to disclose those liabilities and such there. So.
Further discussion, questions, Councilor Lehman?
If the state aid dollars were to change and causing this to be less than fully funded, would we be forced to make up the difference? Or do we write into it that this is separate of the state dollar changes made? I mean, how do we not have the risk from somebody else's behavior? State.
Well, I think that's, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lehman, you know, that's probably a bigger picture, and I think it'd be pretty big political battle on the state level to pull away the state dollars from the fire relief.
Let me ask a second
Wow.
question, and if I can. Who decides whether our fire department is a standalone pension or goes into the states?
No, it's, Councilmember Lehman, it's just the state investment board, so they can go with they can move their funds into, under control of the state investment board. It'd still be the fire relief assets. They're always their assets, it's just a different person investing those assets. Our current fire relief has a private investor that they hired to manage their
And
funds.
they get to decide that, not the state.
The fire relief board decides their risk.
That's it, so that has happened around the state in a couple cases where, local, and it didn't go well, and then they asked the state they take their fund and kind of get under the state umbrella. And that's why I was trying to ask my questions. I'm usually a very positive person, but these defined benefits is a area for a municipality that I think you gotta be careful. So then if it went under the state umbrella and it was very woefully underfunded, the state might ask for an agreement that the city, you're liable up to 100%, so then, and they would require more active payments.
Right.
And things like that. So this here is this increase where the funding balance is way over, and I understand we're in what appears to be a pretty good market here. I've seen it in bad times too, but if they control the risk investments from that, and our portion doesn't even start till below 100.
Mayor, but my point is, it's, when we hold the financial responsibility of the liability, it's, to me, on the city side of it, we're making investments on the city side of it that are very, on the safer side of investments, okay? Now we're taking on a financial liability and responsibility on an investment we have no control over.
We do have
oversight.
Well, they have oversight, but they're not they're broader, I guess, than what ours are.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have a question?
The state funds that we are given, are they held by the state or are they actually in the fund physically?
Councilmember Lewis, they are actually given to us, paid to us, and then turned over. So that's that. My financial review, we talked about the police and fire state aid. That's that payment from the state.
And it's a physically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and it's a
Yeah, when
pass.
time comes, we gotta go to the state for it.
And they're like, yeah, absolutely.
Did you have a?
No, just a comment, it's not like we're gonna be cutting these benefits if the investments take sour. So we do have to be careful.
It might be a recommendation of their board to cut.
Well,
There's
it'd come from them,
right.
which is fine.
So, we've seen over the last 20 years, things go well and things not, and just, it is at the end of the day our liability. So,
I think it's a great discussion, but, until it goes below 100, I don't think we really have, I don't know what you want to call it. I mean, we don't have any responsibility until it hits that point. I mean, we don't have to put anything in, and they seem to be doing a great job of what they're doing. Their advisor seems to be, putting them on the right track, so.
well, and I think that Darren and you put in some strengthening points here that help us as a city, I think. The further protection and control, no increases. If it falls below 100, then we have to come to an agreement to shore up. They don't even get an increase for 24 months or, 12 months.
Right.
Past regular spreadsheets and financial miles. Obviously, this guideline can be amended by future councils at discretion, but hopefully they would have the same style of discussion.
I don't believe you can go backward on this. I don't think if things went south that you'd be able to reduce the benefits. I don't think that's an option.
You probably have an exodus of firefighters the night before that.
And that brings up, if I may, Mr. Mayor, that brings up an important point. One of the things that I look at from a staffing standpoint is that this is one of those benefits that we can then market to our community to why they should want to become a firefighter, and it also keeps those that are currently firefighters, keeps them involved and hopefully part of the team. I will tell you, if we had 35 firefighters waiting for every opening, I probably would not be in support of this. And I told the fire would do that. But I can tell you that we don't have that. We don't have that issue.
Okay.
No city has that because it's a different group of people coming up. They don't want to do the service.
Police, fire, same thing. It's the recruiting of our youth or young adults to be in those industries is changing. Councilor Whiting?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 7913, which approves the Shakopee Fire Department Relief Association pension benefit guideline and the 2017 benefit increase effective August 1, 2017.
Councilor Lewis? Can we have a clarification?
I'd like to make a
yeah, I'll
very
amend
friendly
that to,
second.
I have a Councilor Lewis seconded, but
I want to make sure it's stipulated that it is adjusted in the resolution, the 8,025 under line item 510. Is that your recommendation?
Yes.
As noted.
I apologize. Councilor Lewis, you're not the second then. Councilor,
He seconded it.
okay, so it's
Yeah.
you're okay with that amendment?
Yep.
The second, done by the first. Motion's on the table with the correct amount. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mayor, council members.
All right, 10D2, Administration Fire Captain position. And Chief Coleman, welcome, hi.
Welcome, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great, thank you.
Before we go, just in general, Mr. Mayor and members of council, as you well recognize at this point, anytime we have an opening in our staff, we take a hard look at how we do business and try to find ways to do it better. And that will continue into the future. Chief Coleman lost his administrative assistant, who medically retired, I guess, is that the right term?
Sure. At the first of the year.
She resigned, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she resigned.
So she resigned. And looking at that opportunity, Chief Coleman and I sat down and he described some of the issues he had, and then recognizing that not only do we have some issues on the administrative side of the house, but that we also were currently bringing people in anytime one of our 4 full-time firefighters was on vacation or sick or the other issues where they weren't available to duty, which cost us money as well to bring them on. So ultimately, we took a look and decided that we could solve two of these problems with redesigning this one position. So that's how we got to where we are today, and ultimately it'll end up saving the city money. With that being said, Chief Coleman.
Chief?
Well, thank you. After all that, I really don't have a lot to say. I guess I'm here to ask the council to direct staff to start the hiring process for the administration fire captain to fill the 2 open positions. As I've outlined in the memo, hopefully pretty well for you. I attached a job description for the new position, and I guess I'm here to answer any questions you have about the position or moving forward.
Questions of staff? Councilor Lehman?
One of my concerns with, I'm not against what we're trying to accomplish here, but one of my concerns is that whoever fills this position, since they're gonna have direct supervisory over other folks, that they actually have the training for that purpose.
I believe in the job description, if I pull it out quick, they have to have a fire science degree.
But I'm talking not about the fire side of it.
Well, that gives them their business side or the management skills. That gives them Fire 1, Fire 2, which is all their skills for starting to manage people and that kind of area.
Well, I'm thinking not somebody that's gonna learn on the job, start to want somebody that has that experience.
Correct, that's the way it's spelled out
And
in the
if they
job.
don't, that we as a city get that education.
Now, Councilwoman, I fully understand it is classified as a supervisor position, and they would need to have those abilities in place.
If they don't have it and it's the right candidate, that we get that.
Yes, sir.
Correct, it's right here, it says post-secondary education and your fire science, which gives you that management skills. Or, unless they,
Counselor Lewis, is this gonna be open, or is this gonna be an internal fill?
this will be run under the HR department, will run that like they run any other position, so.
And I will say, just when it comes to filling positions, it takes an exceptional candidate for me not to open up. I mean, I always want internal candidates, but ultimately, it needs to go through the process. And if there's a better person that's out there, then that's who I want to get. So very rarely will I ever basically just hire an internal candidate without a process.
I think this will be.
I've never done it.
This will be an open.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Chief, I have a question in regard to the, one of the things I liked about what I read here was the flexibility that they can now be part of the team when needed to, on a vacation or anything, so that's a
Correct.
true benefit.
So basically, right now, when one of the 4 full-time guys is gone, we backfill with our paid-on-call firefighters. Sometimes we have 2 of them missing, somebody calls in sick, somebody's on vacation, now I'm missing 2 people, and we start making phone calls, trying to find somebody to come fill that position. What we'll do now is, this position, we'll be able to backfill in there, along with giving them supervision over them individuals to make sure things are getting done on a timely basis.
Counselor Whiting?
Yeah, and just to comment, in your essential requirements for qualifications, it also has operators, fire apparatus operator. So in case that person who is out, who's the regular operator, I know yes, most of your firefighters can claim that
Right.
position anyway, but it fills in all of those spots.
Right. Well, right now, the 4 firefighters we have right now rotate on a monthly basis. They start as a driver, the next month they move to the back of the truck, and to the right side, to the left side, to the front, and they just keep rotating. Month after
Every
month.
position.
Every position to get them experience at everything and to start training them for the future of this department. So hopefully, with this captain position now, we'll be able to fill him into that.
Including the office things.
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
I think there's one point that's being overlooked too, that is on the other side. Instead of backfilling an open position, you could have a situation where you need 5 and you've got the 4, and that 5th one happens to be on one hand right now.
Correct, especially during the day when we're short-staffed, the way it is.
Would this position respond to fire calls?
On a working structure fire, yes, or on a need-be basis.
Certain levels?
If I take off, maybe I'm on vacation, he's a supervisor, he should be able to replace my role. Or she, sorry about that, that's my fault. That's me being 30 years in the fire service, I apologize. Would be able to fill in as a command role into that.
Or would this be, in, like you said, structured fighters, would there be other possible situations where they would roll also?
Well, I think it'd have to be by the call, and I think we'll have to work through those. Yeah, but right now, without having our office service person there, we're unmanned sometimes, and there's nobody in the station to take them phone calls. And then that phone call does come in when there's an office, we had our office service work, and she just was playing phone tag, and it wasn't good customer service.
Counselor Lewis?
Well, with mutual aid, it'd be pretty helpful that this person would have to do very many calls. Does the mutual aid go out immediately with most of your calls?
On a working structure fire now, I have an automatic aid now with Med Flyer.
Right.
So they're coming, but on a structure fire, they would be doing that. I would have them start on the next truck, so as a paid-on-call guy, they're coming in, we can fill that next truck and get it going.
All right, would someone like to make a motion? Counselor Morkel?
I authorize the hire of 1 administrative fire captain position at grade 8.
Okay.
Second.
Councilmember Lehman second. More discussion? More discussion? Councilor Lehman?
So it's my understanding, reading the memo, that we're not gonna refill the administrative secretary.
That's
That
correct.
is correct.
And or the lieutenant, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
So this position is kind of 2 in 1.
Right.
Yep.
That's where the benefit, how I see it is.
It's not that we lost a firefighter. That firefighter stepped down from his lieutenant spot to take this family.
Further discussion? Discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. Motion passes 4 to 1.
Thank you.
All right. Let's, we're gonna go into workshop now, 11A. 11A, capital improvement plan review on a first draft. Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Nelson will walk us through the CIP, Mr. Mayor. It's something that staff has been working on for many months. This is a draft. It is designed to kind of be that working document. If there are issues that you have with anything that you see, we will eventually bring this back for approval. But at this point, we're just going to kind of go through it and talk about specific projects, and then have a 30,000-foot level view overall of the whole CIP.
First thing off the bat, Mr. Nelson, welcome.
Thank you.
How much money are we saving?
This is not where we save money, Mr. Mayor.
Why I asked that question?
Thank you, Mayor, council members. We're doing the CIP a little bit differently this year. In the past, the CIP, we've done a separate study session, work session, and had the CIP, but it's been incorporated in with the budget in the past. It hasn't been necessarily a standalone document. This year, it's going to be a standalone document, and from here on out, the foreseeable future on that end of it. So we're hoping to maybe tell a little bit more of a story with this and provide a little bit more narrative information rather than just the book full of numbers potentially has been in the past on that end of it. So.
And if I may, again, we're trying to make it clear and understandable to anybody who cares to pick up the document and read it. So that's really the goal of this being a standalone document. It's very easy to identify what it is and what the projects are.
So just a little overview of the document itself. There are tabs for each section, for each fund. In the beginning of those funds, we kind of have the fund summary where we have the revenues and the expenditures. And then after that, we have the project details that kind of summarizes it, and then it's the detail pages after that and such. So I know I mentioned in our council memo, I had a couple changes that had changed since we had put the document together and such. We ran across a couple more. We'll kind of point those out as we get to those funds throughout the course of reviewing this. But I'm not sure how you want to proceed, but I don't know that you want to go through every page of it. So if we go start at each fund and kind of look at the fund summary and then the projects within that fund, if there's anything specific you want to point out, we can sure go that.
Yeah, I think we get into the, like I said, the fund and then the highlights maybe of 18 or 19 and see what kind of questions we got and move forward.
Absolutely. So the first one is the Park Reserve Fund. This is obviously driven off of park dedication fees is the driver of this one. Obviously, a lot of the projects are dependent upon available funding on that end of it. So let you go from there.
Okay.
Should note that on page 17, that is on the top of park improvements, that is one of the projects that we had justification wrong, so that is not an additional fee on the top of schedule for an out year. It's actually lighting at those fields, one that we're constructing this year, one that's on the slate for a couple of years down the road.
Not future field work.
It's lighting for future field, lighting for current fields.
So when we talk about the Park Reserve Fund then, Jamie, are you going to present that portion of it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I can basically answer any questions that you have.
We're
if
on
you don't
page
wanna go
5.
through.
Talking about some balances. And
Just a highlight, I guess, I mean, the Park Reserve Fund doesn't have a lot of money in it right now, and as park dedication comes in, that's where we get the funding from. So there's just a few projects that have been on the slate for many years, and we keep them on, we keep moving them as park dedication fees come in. So as you know, none of these park improvements or construction move forward unless we have the park dedication fees. Once they're in, then we come forward to you to move forward with the project. So they're all just on here as a plan. These did go to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for their input, and they recommended the park reserve as it was presented with the years in there. One thing they wanted to emphasize to the council that they strongly support is, even though we're starting in 2018 here, there is still slated on the plan for 2017 phase 2 of Quarry Lake Park, which is the trail system. That's not going forward yet until we have park dedication fees to bring it forward to. So that's just a planned project for this year. That would be our next prioritized thing we move forward with before we even get to any of these projects. Jennifer Lane is a neighborhood park that we're working with the developer on them constructing it as they develop the property. So really any fees that we collect would be more of a pass-through going directly to that part of the constructing similar to how we've done all of the countryside parks by the high school and everything that we developed.
Counselor White?
Totally dependent on that next piece.
Correct. Yep.
Counselor Lehman?
Am I reading this correct then, where it's Quarry Lake Park improvements, and then over here, the 2.2 million, that's just for the trails?
No,
That-
17 is not on here. So the 2.2 is for the phase 3, which would be the building.
The 2.2 is for the building?
Correct.
Okay, so
Okay.
on this side over here, should it say the building?
That's just, we have a general overview on this side, so we didn't break it down because it's multiple year construction. So the overview is really just the concept of the park.
Well, I just heard how anybody's gonna be able to pick this new document up and understand, and I'm telling you, it should say building construction.
Maybe we could
Yeah, we can
have two,
update that.
two pieces of this Quarry Lake function, one is the trails and one is the building.
Well, the trails are in 2017, so they're not a part of this document.
I can add to the justification the different phases that we plan to do and when, if they're already constructed, what year they were constructed.
So, yeah, I think that's correct. On page 9 is your single page on Quarry Lake. That should say phase 3 building. Is that, and it's kind of a little bit is in the narrative here, but.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, I can, we can say more details to that.
And I think Quarry Lake building, there's a money for it.
Right.
There's not the money for any of these.
So
projects.
just as we go through this document, this is a draft, not approving anything at this time. Is that correct, Mr. Reynolds?
That's correct, sir. Yeah. This is just to kind of get your thoughts, and then staff will go back and rework it as necessary, and then ultimately we'll bring that back for your approval.
And I think that's why you see on the fund summary, it's a negative 890,000 at the end of 18. That's
Yeah.
because that phase 2 is already considered spent in there, but actually
Right.
it hasn't been approved.
And I'm
obviously.
thinking, to make that number look better, that needs to be moved over to 19.
Well, each year we get park dedication fees coming in, so if we get multiple family housing come in this year, that number is gonna change as we do that.
Even if you get 800,000, you don't wanna bring that fund down to 0 or negative. I don't.
That's for council. Yep. Park Reserve Fund is really kind of that planning template for you to prioritize projects that are in that slate, but none of them move forward until funding is available. And then depending upon how much funds are in that fund, you can either decide to move forward at that time or wait for more funding to come in. So it's a tool that we use for project prioritization, is that as funding comes in, this would be the next one we try to work on.
So if there was an opportunity to move one project back or one project forward, you could do that?
Yep.
I mean, I'm looking at the Quarry Lake here at 2.2 and not enough funding, but, Jennifer Lane might be an important thing based off of development, or one of these other ones, the Savannah Oaks, that, I'm kind of taking that on page 6 is kind of your highlight of your first couple years, right? And they're not ranked or anything, right?
Well, when we put them in years, they were prioritized by years, so the
Okay.
this park board
I see.
has recommended that we do Quarry Lake and get it completed, but their next priority project would be to do Jennifer Lane's kind of a pass-through, so that's developer driven, but the next priority project would be to get that second ball field at Wakapa built, and then Savannah Oaks, you know, based on, and as we get parks in, as we get more development in, you know, as Windermere comes on,
Yeah.
that, if we do any improvements over there that would come out of here, will get added to this plan.
Okay.
It just seemed a little curious, because you had Huber Park Shelter before that, but a lot of these are dependent on things. So to me, I wouldn't, a Huber Park Shelter, depending on Jennifer Lane, I think that should, I'm
Yeah.
not sure it's needed. But, phones are there, it's probably the smaller.
It's smaller by the playground.
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Well, just similar to what Councilor Whiting said, is Jennifer Lane, the people out there deserve something before we, a start, before we finish off Huber.
Right.
But if they're gonna have
Well,
kids,
and
they
that-
wanna have
You know, that's
someplace for them to
always,
play.
in our community, that's where it is, you know, we have the land and no money, or money and no land, and, you know, an empty area.
It's been empty areas all over town.
Since, yeah, right, without funding, right. Okay. More comments, Counselor Lane?
My concern is if you move ahead with Quarry Lake and spend it all down, I mean, realistically, you could be putting any projects in 19 in jeopardy too. You just don't know these things. I mean, it's kind of like putting all your eggs in one basket. I disagree with the location of that park, to be honest with you. I think it's a bad location, and I think it doesn't serve a very wide variety of uses. So,
It's certainly nice.
And I think, you know, depending on the river, the riverbank stabilization may have been put off for too long, and maybe come up even higher than Quarry Lake, I guess,
Come up faster.
in some of your,
if that happens, there's gonna be bigger problems than just Union Park.
oh, yeah.
I'm a little more dollar for our bang, so I'm, you know, Quarry Park's getting more to a usable position, but that much money, and where we could do a couple things with less money, you know, fill in where we need, or you know, Savannah Oaks or things like that. That would be an opportunity where you take some dollars and can make an impact here and here and here throughout our community. Councilor Lewis?
Well, the riverfront makes more sense if you wanna brand downtown. I mean, if you wanna pump up downtown, that should have been the showcase years ago, was the riverfront. Nobody's ever.
Well, you know, we would go back there to the whole Huber Park. I think the estimate on Huber Park, and the river stabilization piece of that was, I believe, $3 million back then, and didn't get a lot of discussion, or, you know, putting that riptide and then a concrete cap on top that you could actually bring people to the front edge of that, but, you know, safely, and now it's just that much more expensive.
That's not a fair statement. It did get a lot of discussion, and the discussion was with engineering, myself, and congressional folks, mainly the Army Corps of Engineers, when we were working on the sewer line at the Interceptor down by the river.
Right.
Where we wanted to protect that asset from
Yeah.
becoming a liability to
Yeah.
their navigational waters. There is a possibility in the future to continue that avenue and try to get some of that funding.
Right.
And we should.
And I think we should, and I know Mr. Reynolds has talked about it in the past, and Nate, and you know, whether it's the DNR or the Corps, or, I think there would be, those organizations would, I know that funding's always a question, but they would want riverbank stabilization. So it just doesn't erode and from a, you know, safety factor and all those aspects, but the erosion of the riverbank and the, you know, degradation of the water quality, you know, everybody should have a piece in that.
And then let's tie it together to the drainage chapter in this CIP, where we talk about the future standards of water filtration. Our Old Town Shakopee going down to the river, well, some of them drain right down through that bank.
Yeah.
So there might be an opportunity to do things at the same time.
Right. Help stabilize, hold it back, infiltrate it,
Yep.
reduce runoff, reduce erosion.
Potentially some added improvements, correct me if I'm wrong, could we use some of that, if we ever get that downtown TIF district, could some of that money be reinvested in some of that stuff? That's the question.
Well, it depends on the boundary of the TIF district.
And the type of improvements it is.
It wouldn't be the stabilization, but maybe the trail part of it.
Parks are a delicate subject on TIF, but
Right.
usually if you can make it a transportation issue versus a
Well,
recreation.
just
you know,
another way to help,
Transportation of people.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
bike lane.
All right,
This question.
proceed. Yeah. What do we want to do next?
Capital improvement fund is next. So a whole host of projects, obviously, with our annual street reconstruction projects, alleys. Verling Drive, County Road 69 to Taylor Street, that is a project that is slated in the 2018 CIP, but kind of moving the fast forward on that one, trying to get that one done yet this year on that.
So
end of
when
it,
I read this, I just want to make sure that for page 19,
Yep.
the outflow from this page here is 7.2 million next year.
Correct.
All right, thank you. And a couple of big drivers are the Veerling Drive, which you just mentioned, and Eagle Creek. And there's one more big one.
Shakopee Avenue.
Shakopee, the second part of Shakopee Avenue.
Yep.
And certainly, I think the Veerling to Taylor, I have a question on that. Obviously, that will help development by the old mall there, but why does not that improvement go all the way to 69?
That I can't answer. That's,
I thought it was going all the way.
Well, I'm looking at the diagram and the brief description, and it didn't look like it stopped short of 69, and I'm going, why wouldn't we?
it may just be the map.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Well, I'll just have that as a question. I'll have that as a question.
That's Mayor and Council, that's a mistake. That project location, that is where it's located, but that road will go all the way from the county highway back to the neighborhood.
Answers my question, thank you.
We'll replace that map with a better one in there.
And then my other comment, I think that we all agree that west portion of Shakopee Avenue is very needed.
Yep, that's on the slate for next year.
That's an expensive one, and it is overdue.
Other questions on,
So I should mention the funding sources a little bit. This is obviously where our franchise fees are getting plowed into the capital improvement fund. It's part of our infrastructure is that plan. Intergovernmental revenue, our MSA construction dollars all go into here as well. And we also,
State aid?
Yep, our state aid dollars. And we're changing that formula a little bit for this next year. In the past, we've taken 35% of our state aid dollars and used them as maintenance. We're going to reduce that to 25% to make the reporting a little bit easier on that. So the MSA construction dollars will actually go up in the capital improvement fund. But conversely, then I'll lower the levy that's dedicated to the capital improvement fund by that little, it's like $100,000 change on it. So it's not significant.
On the other side of page 19, the federal grant, the 1.2 million.
Eagle Creek roundabout. The Eagle Creek roundabout is up. Shenandoah.
2018, page 19.
Go to page
Federal
23,
grants.
go to page 23 and go down under 2018 to Eagle Creek Boulevard, Veerling Drive roundabout, 1.2. And then if you go to the bottom of the page where it says CIF cost sharing, MnDOT federal,
Oh, yeah.
1.2.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
That was for 2 roundabouts, I think, there's one both sides of it.
we'll send them a thank you card.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I don't think it's in the bank yet, yeah, so. I'm getting ready,
Send
but
us
it's not gonna
ink.
sign it.
Huh?
Send them some ink.
Ink for print.
Oh,
They're
ink.
printing press. They don't have the money, they just keep printing.
One other small change I noticed that was brought to our attention today on page 35, which is the State 816 trail extension. And Bruce informed us that the county cost sharing is reduced to $40,000 is what they've been approved for. So in here we have $60,000, so that additional $20,000 would have to be picked up in the
That
capital.
goes up to 200.
Couldn't we collect that by just passing a policy saying the city doesn't participate in county road project? We'd collect a lot more than that. We'd make it up.
Mayor and council members, the note was that currently they have dedicated $40,000 to this project, but we will be working with them to increase it.
They build a county road out in the country and somehow it's our responsibility to pick up a portion of it.
There's also a note that will, to do one of those extensions, those missing segments, will need to acquire some easement right away, clear out some trees, so there will be some increased costs that we can expect the county paying for that project.
And I will be talking a little more about county, city cost participations as part of my update.
I will mention on this aspect, though, of following the capital improvement plan, the last couple of years, we put a lot of money into reconstruction and street overlays and things like that for ongoing maintenance. And that budget has been pretty high. Well, how I view it, one more year of a high, about $5 million of the 7.2 is going to street reconstruction or construction. And then we get a little break the year after, and then scale up a little bit more again in 2020. But there was a situation where we're getting our roads infrastructure in pretty good shape, and not have that at such a high level that I think we've had in the last 5 or 6 years. I think at least 5 at a higher level.
One of the things that's going to benefit us is the policy that we adopted back, where we actually do that overlay and what's the other one, where you put the rock stuff down?
Yep.
That stuff.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, going back years, back in the old
Right.
two days, we really didn't do that very well.
You waited until it was almost a reconstruct, and
Then
now
we
we're
tried to
doing
patch it together. And
maintenance sooner and more often and extending it.
And now, the last 10 or so, we've been pretty aggressive on making sure we do that chip seal, and then after the chip seal period is out, then the overlay, chip seal, and then you're out 20 to 30 and you're doing
Right.
recon. So,
Scheduled maintenance.
a little bit better of a program now than then.
You got residents petitioning you to assess them and fix their street.
Please fix my street, my
You
car's
know, you
lost
brought
somewhere in that
a
hole
ball
over there.
Other discussion here in the capital improvement, a lot of heavy lifting in this area, I think. Anything stand out, Aaron?
No, I think, we talked about the Beerline, or the County Road 69 project. I think the funding on that is pretty unique, that we're able to take those MSA dollars that we had last year dedicated to 4th Avenue for the Amazon project, and realize that TIF is actually gonna pay for that infrastructure piece, and so we're reallocating those MSA dollars over to that project to be able to take advantage of that needed project sooner than we originally anticipated, so.
Councilor Lehman?
I'm on page 39 here, and I'm looking at the 42 from 83 to Marshall Road. That's showing us paying 1.2 million.
I was gonna ask, I have a note here, isn't this a county road?
It's a county road.
And there's a couple places in here where I wrote county road, and I'm going, I see we're in for a lot, I'm kind of going, why would that be, but,
We're hard pressed to get access to any.
well, they want to eliminate access.
Exactly, so, I mean,
But that's a, I get the county on the limiting access, but I'm going, why are we,
Mr. Mayor, that may be, if you look at the funding sources, $1 million of that is coming from storm drainage, so I wonder if.
we're responsible?
I wonder if it's a stormwater, more of a stormwater project than a street,
And-
obviously a street project.
And currently, the county city cost participation models, we do shoulder some of that cost of the stormwater. But again, I'll kind of talk a little bit about some future discussions that the administrators throughout the county have had. Or I guess I can actually do it right now. So essentially, we've been talking amongst the administrators and with the county administrator now for probably a little over a year about articulating in a policy the same across the board, which it currently is not the case, for cost participation. Currently, what we essentially go into negotiations with each project. And our negotiation may not be as fruitful as Savage. And Prior Lake may, get a different participation rate than we. And from our perspective, that didn't really seem, one, to be fair. It tends to become a battle of personalities because we're actually involved in those negotiations as opposed to just having an outline that we all, every community, and the county would agree to what those participation rates are. So it takes that all out of the table and then allows us some clarity. When we look at a project, we know what our costs are going to be. We just got on Monday the preliminary outlines of a draft for that. So at this point, the administrators are going to be looking at that with our staffs to make a determination. And then we're going to take projects from each community and see how that would work under these formulas.
Test it out. Like
a test run.
Yeah.
We've been involved in this about a year. It's going to continue to be a process. It certainly won't be done by 2018, but we are really working towards that ultimate objective of fair and equitable across the board, taking the personalities out of it. Because if we feel, for example, if I feel that I'm not being served by the county, then it becomes a personality battle, and then we get angry because we're not getting the same thing as somebody else, and we really want to take that all on. So more to come on that.
Councilor Moko?
In the future.
Another question on that is about making sure their plans coincide with our plans, because I think when we got caught off guard with Amazon and they weren't ready to do that part of 83, then we're looking at constructing part of 4th Avenue a second time. And, as I'm looking down, on page 41, and we've got County Road 83, but we're looking at 2021, but yet we have Canterbury that's looking at a development, those kinds of things concern me. Are we putting those off too long when we come to development? And where's the county at with their project plans as well? So.
I'm not going to defend the county, but the county needs sometimes are different than the cities, but
yeah, and that's very true, Mr. Mayor. I mean, and we talked about that. The county's goal is to move people from point A to point B in the quickest and most efficient manner. We want people to get off the county roads and go to our stores and other places. So you're right, it does, and it's that tension of us anytime we have a development to trying to find access and yet keeping the county happy as well.
Councilor
I'm
Lehman?
going to put a whole different perspective on this. When I go back to the 42 project, if it's a stormwater issue, the county has some ownership to some of that stormwater. And the reason I say that is because any development that's happening that's creating this stormwater benefits Scott County also. They are also a recipient of them taxes, as is the city. And it just so happens to work out that we're almost equal recipients because of tax rates and stuff. So they benefit from any development that causes that stormwater, as do we. So they have some skin in this game also. And that needs to be communicated that we're not the sole producer of this, and we're not the sole benefiter from this.
But we have to deal with them.
Well, and, you know, it's a shared deal because we're both benefiters from that.
But we
That
don't have
development-
the same human services sit, as an example, you know, issues that they have to deal with.
Well, and they don't have the same issues that we do. They don't,
So
Scott
it's
County
different.
doesn't have a fire
I mean,
department. Scott-
you know, I think, Mr. Reynolds is on the right track about this common document that can help at least call out some of these issues or equality amongst cities. And, you know, maybe we could hear some more rationale on that, why that 42 and why it carries a lot more expense to us. Maybe there's some things we're not thinking of. We're thinking, you know, from a city perspective, but, Councilor Lewis, did you have a comment?
Oh, some of the stormwater, like Council Lehman was saying, that comes all the way from St. Patrick and comes through our area. So there's a lot of county area there that they should be paying for. You know, the volume that comes through isn't all ours. I mean, greater portion.
A lot of it's coming from the south side of the road, which is Prior Lake.
Well, a lot of it comes from Med.
Right.
So Mayor and council members, if I could, most counties do put the trunk storm sewer on the cities as far as maintenance and responsibility of it. Hennepin County does. And counties do have policies that Mr. Reynolds was talking about. If Scott County doesn't have one, it would be good to establish that. But I would expect that the county would wager to put that trunk system on the cities versus just the catch basins that catch water for the roads. That's typically what a lot of counties will only take ownership of. So I'm just saying that's what's typical, and that's what I would expect would be the case here. And then for the $200,000 for the capital improvement fund, that would be most likely for trails and sidewalks. I would expect and some other local components of the roadway portion of it.
County policy is they put a trail on one side of the, like, 42 is not effective.
Trail and a sidewalk on alternate sides.
No, that's the county policy.
County road,
The county puts a trail on the county road.
right.
So their own policy is making us pay for their trail.
We need to have our own policy.
Well, we'll get some more answers.
Yeah,
So,
we'll see.
capital improvement, for the capital improvement fund here, a couple years out, pretty consistent at, you know, at some of these projects and, more comments? Darren, do you have more?
I believe so.
Okay. Next up?
Next up,
Oh,
yep, is the capital the equipment. The equipment internal service fund. So this is where we charge back our rents to our various departments for the replacement costs of all of our vehicles. We have in this CIP eliminated that rent reduction that we had last year. If you recall, during our budget discussions and possibly a CIP discussion, we talked about the equipment and kind of, we did a long-term analysis beyond our previous 10-year analysis, and we had looked at beyond that 10 years, there was like a fire, there was a ladder truck, there was a couple of snow plows and such like that really took a hit of that fund balance. And so plan was, or the policy decision made, was it to restore half of that. We were at 17% reduction, we restored 8.5% of that reduction. The CIP now takes into account that additional 8.5%, which I believe amounted to about, I think it was only, well, I think that was $75,000 is what that additional 8.5%
equals 75 grand.
across all
Into the fund.
into the fund.
Right. Out of a fund that has a $4 million balance.
Right.
Three, so, Councilor Lewis?
I'm just curious, you know, with the public works equipment, you know, we've got a pretty good rotation going with rentals and that. You know, we keep our equipment up, it's good stuff, we don't have a lot of maintenance on it. But I look at the fire department, when they get done with a truck, I mean, it's what, 10 years or so down the road? I mean, when we auction them off, the value is not that great anymore. I'm just wondering if somebody shouldn't look into a system like we do with the other equipment to where you trade it out earlier if that's possible.
I think the trade out on some of the equipment for public work is lower dollar amounts where you turn them faster.
I don't think they have a lease option.
Lease option on a.
I haven't heard of lease
I'm not saying lease, but I'm just saying that there would be a way that we would, you know, we take the hit on it.
20 years.
And then another city would take it over from us on an agreement ahead of time.
Mr. Mayor, the Councilmember Lewis, usually the problem is that when they're built to specifics of the needs of the department that's purchasing it, and then obviously those needs change over that 20 years. It doesn't necessarily fit the needs specifically of another department, so the value isn't there, even though the truck has been well maintained and, you know, serves a purpose. It probably isn't the right.
Still might be able to sell it.
I think what he's saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say we take our pumper truck that we're replacing and we find a smaller community that truck is almost overkill for, that's really serves their need almost like a brand new truck would, because it's built to our spec, which is much better than the spec that they would use because they're a smaller community. Would we get more value doing that than just selling it out?
And we're waiting 20 years. And
Councilmember.
I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
It's probably a lot of legwork in it.
And I think we do a lot of advertising to sell our vehicles. I mean, if you probably look out on the government websites, there's a lot of used fire trucks out there, and that's probably what the market's.
Well, I think back when we started with the public works equipment, that was probably a lot of legwork to get the process going, get the dealers and the manufacturers involved.
Program.
Yeah, show them the benefit to them, because, you know, we take the hit on it, or not really a hit, but we, you know, the rent we pay is very reasonable when you break it down. I mean, it's, you know, if you break it down to $40 an hour for some of these pieces of equipment.
It's a heck of a bargain that they're getting, and they're selling the name brand. They go back and sell the John Deere then for more than what they pay for at wholesale.
There's a lot of makers of mowers. There's just not a whole lot of makers of fire trucks and a whole lot of uses for a used fire truck.
Well, back on an interesting discussion on that, maybe we could get some more information on it, but we have the equipment internal fund. The biggest driver here is from the fire department. They need some more hose here or something, 1.2.
And those are two
pumper trucks. Two
pumpers that those the council approved. We ordered those already in 2017. We'll take delivery in 2018.
They're on their way.
I have a question on something else on that one. Not the pumper trucks, but the 5 years of the breathing apparatuses. Is that the PACs?
Yeah.
The question and concern I have on that is, as we move through these years, do they automatically, like, if a new standard comes out, then the next year we automatically get that new standard?
Cheap?
Or do we buy all the same and then find out that they're outdated and there's a new standard out?
That's a twofold question. First, if there's a new update that's going to work for us, yes, we'll take the update. Sometimes we can buy a year older pack cheaper, so we'll buy the same model again to keep them all the same. But when they do, they change their updates probably every 3 years. There's this new standard that comes out through an FDA. We'll go to that new standard.
So in 2020, we'll be on our 3rd year. We'll probably have an update at that point?
We'll probably get our update this first year.
Okay.
There's a new standard out right now that we're not up to yet. But we don't have to retrofit our old packs to the new standard.
Okay.
Anything going forward, we'll have to, but the old packs are all done already.
Okay, all right.
What's the life expectancy on a pack?
5 to 6 years.
Depends how hot the fire is, I suppose.
Huh?
Depends how hot the fire is?
Well, that's replacement damage.
They're 10 years is when they're obsolete. I can't use it. And then about 5 to 6 years are maintenance costs on it, starting to skyrocket.
Further discussion on the internal equipment fund?
They don't have a lease option on them tanks, do they?
I don't know.
Is there a third world market for those used ones? I mean, I know some of your stuff does go third world.
Well, the tanks become obsolete because of the degradation of the tanks.
Right, I understand. That's right.
They can go across the third world country, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, out of the country, yeah. But there's no value to it. I mean, it's more of a donation over that way.
Okay.
That's all.
Mr. Mayor, I want to make one note on page 75. I think this was in the memo as well too, but building inspections, there's a sedan that was scheduled for 2020. They're going to eliminate that purchase and they're just going to use old recycled police cruisers that are the 4x4.
That's all.
Right, right.
How does that get billed out then?
The cruisers would not get filled out then, so they're would not get
It stays as an
right, but they've
internal.
already been filled out to the police department. So
I just thought it might transfer to the building department.
They would say maintenance, any maintenance costs that are.
Correct, I mean, it was originally billed to the PD, so would the PD get something back on their books?
Yeah. Eventually it goes into the fund itself when that vehicle then is sold at auction. Eventually when it's rotated out, any proceeds then go back into that.
Okay, so that's go until they actually till the city gets it out of their fleet, then those folks agree to that.
All right. If nothing more on the equipment internal fund, we'll move on to park assets. Any more savings, Karen, on that?
All right, I think we're good. Park assets.
There's one item, if I may, that will be the opposite of savings, and that would be the bridge. Is that under this one? So the Memorial Bridge, the original estimate was $550,000, but Bruce has been working with the consultant, and it's looking more like it's closer to $1 million for that bridge. So the cost of that bridge is expected to go significantly up.
The bridge, I can't find a solution, and
Let's go build one in the middle of the night.
This
This is ridiculous.
Then we were going to move the location to actually save money.
There are a lot of issues with it.
All right.
So some more to come on that.
We need some more partners.
Yeah. Yep. So Grant.
Well, it's very difficult to justify $1 million bridge on that location. And not to get too far into the bridge, but we're still working on that bridge.
Well, we just put a hovercraft right there and,
A canoe. Canoe.
A hovercraft, drive right over top of it.
Zip line.
Now there's a problem. How about like a fence, don't cross the river or the marsh?
I can't understand why it's $1 million to build a bridge.
This fence.
All right.
So that project is scheduled for 2018, but I would expect that we need to beat the ground for some more funding to make that feasible for 2018.
And then
We need to beat the ground to make it cheaper.
yeah.
There's been a lot of different options for that Bruce has looked at with WSB. I think he just needs to get up to speed with WSB because you may have a different opinion than what Bruce is looking at. But we did get a second grant for that now, so we do have $300,000 in grants. And then the DNR is trying to set up another meeting with all the players to see. They have to come to the table because it will ultimately be their state trail. So the trail portion of that total, that total cost includes the trail connections that go out to the bridge, not just the bridge itself. So we have to see where they're coming as well.
And we have commitments from the SMSC, we have commitments from the county, we have our own funding sources, but still out of reach.
Well, and as I look to the park asset, there's a couple of projects that I thought were important. Not just from a safety standpoint, but also from a community use, a diverse communities, whether it's snowmobiles, bikers, hikers, whatever. That bridge is one of them. Or a connection that crosses. Doesn't have to be there, doesn't have to be that kind of bridge. That price is ridiculous. Yeah. The other one was the tunnel underneath 15 by the roundabout, south of the roundabout.
Yep.
That's in the CIS.
For what year was that for?
That's a couple years out.
Right, that one to me seems to be a safety issue. You've got people coming into town toward that roundabout, and you've got a trail that comes up with no visibility, crossing right in front of them.
Right.
Councilor Whiting?
Yeah, just, I think maybe we need to take a little discussion on, with our new pool. Just opened up. I heard that we had a swimmer in there already.
Jumping in.
But it was wet. But we do have some expenses on San Venture, main pool pump and pump filter system. That's an expensive pool, and I guess the discussion would be is, well, if we have an indoor pool, do we still want to maintain an outdoor pool?
Councilor Lewis?
Well, what is the life expectancy on San Venture? I mean, every year we have to get a waiver from the state because you can't, Clarity doesn't meet state standards.
We are exempt. We're grandfathered in. The pool will go as long as
we want to maintain it.
Yep. Once there's a major overhaul to it or a new liner that's needed, that we have to petition state to see if they will allow us to do it. They may. I mean, they just let Cokato build a brand new sand bottom pool, and then I said they weren't going to let anybody do any renovations. So I think it's a case by case basis when we get to that. I mean, that liner was put in 2001. I think we still have another 10 to 15 for sure good years out of it if we keep it maintained. The building was built in 2007. It's only 10 years old.
I think that San Venture, I know that money has gone into it periodically over the years, and there's looks like some pumps and maintenance things here. I don't know if they're maintenance, but to me. But I think it serves a purpose, and there is some uniqueness in that. And for a lot of years, the only thing we had, when people associate with it, I mean, people come from outside of our community to come to that pool because it's so unique. No other pools are like that around. So.
Well, I think we have to balance the uses once we find out what the indoor is going to do versus the outdoor. If the indoor surpasses it by a lot, we can see if maintenance gets too high, we can just say,
Well, I think we have some assets that we've already spent some money on that haven't gone to their full life of lately. So I think we should have that discussion, but it'll be down the line when something more major, I would think. But Councilor Lehman?
I think the sheer size difference between the outdoor pool and the indoor pool. The indoor pool isn't big enough to serve the size of the branch out. It's not. And there's a whole crowd that prefers the outdoor pool compared to the indoor pool. For the most part, when it's nice outside, I think that outdoor pool is usually heavy. It's almost like a mini Wet and Wild with the slides and stuff.
I thought it needed discussion, and we'll probably be discussing it every year.
I think the filters are maintenance. This is general maintenance. At some point, you got to change the filters out. Pumps we don't have to do. But you're just saying they're supposed to know how old they are. They're due. Doesn't mean we have to do it.
So I want to make a comment on the this park asset. Looks like a scheduled to spend 1.7. 550,000 was towards the bridge, which is now $1 million. And then I see in here the Lions Park warming house back in here now with a bigger number. And gosh, it'd just be great to get a new building there. This costs too much.
Why don't we get Link to build us a house with a three-car garage? We'll use the house portion with no rooms inside it for a get-together space, and we'll use the three-car garage for the storage.
Something.
I'm telling you,
You built nice houses.
Yeah, you could have a hell of a house for $50,000. All we really want is a
50. You mean 500?
500,000.
And we didn't increase that amount. That's the same amount.
It's the same amount? No. So, and then was I reading in here that one of my things that when we were talking about the building, and we were talking about what can we do with the bathrooms that we already have there, and there's some money in here for that, is that correct?
We did. Yeah,
and so I think that would go a long way to sprucing up those bathrooms in that old building as well.
Well, if we're going to do the new building, would we still redo the bathrooms in the old building?
I think that's up for discussion. I think from a recommendation from staff-wise, yes, we would want to. I think we could then downsize when the building, the warming house. I think going back to, the last 2 times we did this project over the last year, the focus got set on those bathrooms, and that really shouldn't have been the focus of that warming house. I think with the playground that we put in, it's beneficial to add that family bathroom onto that bathroom.
Well, the proximity makes more sense because the other one's so far away.
Yeah, but I think the focus of the warming house needs to be on just that, being a warming house. And that's the discussion that we put in the memo a little bit that we want to have tonight. Is, we have a building there right now that should come down.
We're all agreed on that.
Yes. But when we go back, we tried to make it a building that was going to could be rented out season long. That we narrowed it down to a smaller footprint. Really, in all reality, if we wanted to make that building a year-round rentable facility like the other 2 shelters we have in there, like the youth building we have in Lions Park, we need more parking. We can't, in a reevaluation of it yet, we can't manage the amount of people that another shelter in that park would bring in, and they'll have any parking for them with the playground, the 2 shelters, the pool in the summer, and the youth building. There isn't any more room. So I think that is something that we wanted to have a little bit of council input. We kept the $500,000 in there. If we're going to take it down and we're not going to replace it, then I'm not sure there's any benefit in redoing the hockey rink. That was also slated for this year to go with it. We now moved that all out to 2018. But if there's no warming house, the hockey rink won't be used. There's really no point for it.
Still doesn't solve the bathroom problem for the new impact in the park and
well, if we redo the old bathrooms and expand them, that would take care of that. And it's like I said, the proximity to all the shelters in the playground, way better over there. It's more centrally located.
So then we're back to, do you want to have a storage facility up there? Which is really what it comes down to.
Do we have any counts on how often that hockey rink gets used other than by the Lions? I know they have their big deal in the wintertime, but if for that one weekend, they could put up a tent and throw heaters in it, if that was the deal. Can we do it?
We do keep a count of open skaters, that use those rinks. I can get you that information. Our warming houses do take attendance each night of how many people they have come skate. That park, the focus on that park was heavily used by the Hockey Association as their second sheet when it wasn't too cold to use. Mm-hmm. Now that they have their second sheet, the usage will go down. They will still use it on occasion, but it's not as big of a need to have it there as it used to be with the need for the Hockey Association.
I'm just reading in the local paper, I think last week or the week before, that 25 years ago, the bubble burst in the hockey rink in Lyons that actually started the discussion about a new bubble or what to do in a new, several years later we built a new community center, but kind of went back to square one because back then I think in the very early 90s, late 80s, I mean that was where it was happening, right? Because it was, to have a bubble on an outdoor rink was, I played hockey too, and if you could play in a bubble, that was a big deal rather than outside, truly outside.
Early 80s, I was playing at Huber Park.
Yeah. Oh, down there. No bubble down there.
The ice rink was at Huber Park, and the warming house was there, and you skate down a flooded road.
Well, down the road to get to the rink.
From the hockey rink to the regular rink, and then across the regular rink into the warming house.
In my opinion, I think, the Lions Park bathroom should be a priority like we have it in 18, but, the park lights and rink and the warming house, maybe push that out a couple of years, in my point of view, until we decide whether or not that is something we need to do.
We wanted to go ahead and take that building down this year, I think is.
That'd be my question.
Are we worried about it falling down?
When you looked at it?
It's tough shape, but I don't.
It's clearly in tough shape. The report that we received says it needs to come down at some point.
Get it down and get it down and expand the bathroom.
It can't be used. I would much rather get rid of it so it's not an attractive nuisance.
Right.
And
Then we reevaluate the outdoor hockey.
Yeah. Might support, the building is not, we wouldn't be parking our cars in there, right?
No.
Right, so.
We're not going to use the building. With our new public works or new engineer on, maybe he's got a different idea on taking that building down. Bruce didn't think it was a good idea for our people to take it down. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Crash a fire truck into it.
Yeah, there could be some environmental mitigation we gotta do, but
Use the other.
we're not specialized in it by any means, but, I mean, you could take that building down probably for, I don't know, $40,000. I don't know, there's been an estimate.
You talking in-house cost, or are you talking?
No, actually, the estimate, as part of the bidding, both times, the estimate to take it down is about $10,000.
Oh, was what?
10.
Well, they can do it for that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, then you don't give them a building to turn around and do it. I'll take that then, though.
And we could assist in hauling material away or something like that, so we'll be as frugal as we could on it.
All right, so the problem with the bridge at $1 million, the building, the bathroom, but maybe allocate to take some down, take the building down. If it's not.
Does anybody agree that the tunnel underneath 15 needs to be moved up? I think it's about 22, isn't it?
No, it's future funding.
Future funding, so it's not even funded.
We have an idea what it's going to cost.
What page are you on?
46.
Well, if we're moving out the rink and the, then maybe we could use that funding, that was maybe set aside to.
In the park asset fund.
Move that up.
So you went back on me.
We can, why don't you let us take a look at that, and we'll come back with some recommendations.
And that's probably a conversation with Scott County.
Yeah.
Okay.
How much work has been done on that tunnel? I mean, to me, just looking at it quickly, looks like we got some grading problems there as far as, is there enough road bed there to, I don't know what they need above the tunnel. I don't know the answer to that. We'll have to take a look at it. Yeah. It may not be feasible.
Go down to go up, right?
Yeah, there's a pretty good incline on both sides.
It really is. Well, you got the same thing over on Marshall. You got to go down to go up.
You gotta go down, but.
Just looking at it, I think is a good idea, because maybe one of the options is it's not feasible to go underneath and you run the trail crossing down to an intersection or something.
We'll take a look at it and come back.
State roads to school, dollars.
All right.
It's right next to the school.
Right. Where are we at now? We're kind of moving through this here.
IT.
Oh, wait, we have one more thing. Bring up Cloverleaf.
Which one?
Cloverleaf. For the park access. There's a new item that's not in here. No page. There is no page. This is something that recently came up as a discussion with the park superintendent. We were out, I've been getting multiple emails over the past couple of months from pickleball users that don't necessarily like our current pickleball courts that we have that are just lined on tennis courts, because the tennis net is a couple inches higher than a pickleball net. So whether we want, this is up for discussion, spring each day. So one item, it just came about when I was talking with Mr. Egan of the Parks Department, is that the one tennis court that was supposed to be slated for this year in their general fund operating budget to get resurfacing was Cloverleaf Park. So it's the park on the corner of Independence and Crane, smaller park. That's just a single tennis court. They were going to do that this year, but the pavement, the condition of the pavement is worse than just repainting it. It needs to have new pavement. So we went out and just curious, because all of our other tennis courts are either brand new or they're newly refinished. So I told the pickleball group, definitely not anything on those courts until it's time, to refurbish those. But when Mr. Egan mentioned to me that Cloverleaf has the potential. We did go out and we looked at it, and this is very recent, that's why it's not in here, and we just measured it yesterday. We went out and we laid out pickleball courts, and we could change that one court into 4 pickleball courts, where they're designated pickleball courts. Chanhassen just redid that to 2 tennis courts, they made into 6. Prior Lake did it. It's a very popular sport, very heavily used by especially our senior community, but any adults. I played in the indoor courts in our community center.
I hear a lot about that.
But it's very popular, and I think we could go either way. We could tennis courts aren't heavily used except for our 4 courts at Stans Park, along with the 4 courts next to it that the school district owns that our tennis association plays on heavily. The high school has 10 tennis courts as well that their teams play on. Our community tennis courts are used, but not heavily used. We actually eliminated 2 at Lions Park 2 years ago, and then we built 2 at Riverside Field so that we have them on 2 different sides of the community. Lions Park and Riverside Fields are lined with pickleball lines. I think it's worth considering converting 1 tennis court to the 4 pickleball courts for that sport. I think the cost is around $125,000. What it would do, it would resurface, line it, and then there would be fencing installed between all 4 courts. So it would be no tennis on that, just pickleball. We'd actually put in pickleball nets, and then just like tennis, people have to bring their own paddles involved. So it's something, because of the amount and the pavement condition, it would go from their general fund operating budget as a project in the park asset.
The fencing between the courts, how high would that be?
It can be 3 or 4 feet. It's just very minimal, just for the separation of the court.
I guess I'd rather see 4 than 3, because somebody running up against a fence can go over a 3-foot versus a 4-foot will keep on one side.
I don't know anything about pickleball.
Chanhassen was very generous in sending us their plans and their cost estimates and their bids and stuff like that. So they had 6 courts, so we have to work with that.
So what's wrong with having a tennis court striped for both? I mean, then you've got multiple uses on one court. Why is that not acceptable?
The height of the net. I think it's 3-inch difference.
That's it?
I know.
Everybody wants their own play ball.
Yeah. You mean these folks are measuring the height of the net?
Yeah, maybe we can do something creative. Some strapping like those little.
Can we see more information on that? You know, I'm not a person that is for all these individual sports, but pickleball has been up and coming in the last 5 years. There's actually leagues and, you know, things like that. And
I would like to see the community's ingenuity with developing a net.
Full of pins.
And as a
Flip it, unflip it, it folds down 3 inches, and there you go.
But if you do that, then you're only going to get 2 courts out of a tennis court.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could, on one tennis court, if you use the net, you only get 1 court. You can, the other option is on a typical tennis court, you can put 2 pickleball courts parallel to the tennis court, and then some communities have like a equipment box that you allow people to have a code to, or however we want to secure it, and it's portable. Like at the community center, we have portable nets that they set up when we have pickleball. We have 6 indoor courts at the community center. The only issue with that is it's leaving equipment out in the park, and how many times it's going to get legs and walk away. So
driving towards a membership at the community center for pickleball. If it's that popular, then.
Well, they love playing inside, but everybody wants, I mean, in summer they want to be outside, and a lot of these are snowbirds that play all year round, even when they go to Arizona. And
well, maybe we get some options and take a look at it. Let's see some more information.
Sure. I can bring numbers from the state association on participation in tournaments and stuff like that.
Is it possible to make a pickleball court, you know, the 4 you're talking about on a regular tennis court, but have it so just in case it wanes to where it's not that popular anymore, that posts and that can be removed and just make a regular tennis court? Yeah. Something where you pull the pipes out, put a plug in, and convert it.
It could be the intent of this project was to have actually concrete around the bituminous and then concrete dividing the 4 courts as well. So it would be more of a permanent pickleball court. So obviously there's other options. So look at doing something different for sure.
Trying to dual use.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Jamie, for that. All right, IT?
I believe this is the first year that we've had the IT Internal Service Fund as part of the Capital Improvement Fund. So it's kind of a work in progress. It's mainly user charges are based off of the user accounts, the number of individuals we have throughout the organization and such. A lot of the projects are basically just the main computer replacement, licensing, printers, that type of thing. Obviously, if there's projects down the road, if there's a fiber project or something like that would be built into this fund as well. But for now, it's mainly their yearly routine type of capital outlay at this point in time.
Questions on the IT budget?
Computers and maintenance. A lot of computers.
It's nice to see it broke down so we have a plan at least for it.
Yeah, and that was the overall objective, was trying to make sure that we had it out there and an actual CIP so everybody can see exactly what we're projecting in the future.
Is the 2018 $175,000 new computers? Is that City Hall computers making this up or?
No, we don't know. That's our normal rotation. We rotate in 4 years. So
all the departments combined?
Correct. So all the stuff that we have now will go with us, unless it's scheduled for replacement.
Okay.
Coach Lewis?
Give me a heads up.
45 minutes?
Whatever.
No new business. All right, let's go. We're on to, if there's no other questions on IT, Building Internal Service Fund.
Here again, Mr. Mayor, this is the other internal service fund that we had restored funding to. We had that at that 8.5% increase last year. We had the rest of that 8.5% to go to this year. Now again, and I believe it was about $80,000 increase just for that 8.5%.
80,000.
Yeah. Darren, there's one thing that I noticed. We've got the fire station number 1, roof membrane bolt over here, and then we've got it listed here on 153 with no other information. So,
okay. Thank you.
Questions on here? This is mainly maintenance, right?
Yes, sir.
Which one are you on?
That's it.
The building
Internal Service Fund is on page
151, 152.
Well, 2020, you got a building, not maintenance.
Big boy building, new fire hall.
Yeah, and ultimately that, obviously we're looking at that long-term funding. As you know, we put in for a bonding issue with the state. Don't expect to get that. But the next bonding year is in 2020. And then we have a better opportunity at that point.
I have 2 questions here. You're showing 120 across the board for transfer to City Hall Construction Fund. And then you're showing 300,000 to Public Works debt service. Did the Public Works building debt service get paid off in the refunding bond?
It didn't get paid off. There was a couple pieces of that refunding that were in there. So this goes through, I think, 2025, I think, is when the Public Works facility gets paid off. If I recall
I
correctly.
could have swore that bond.
Councilor Whiting?
Paid off and that we special stuff.
We have a building, a boiler unit for fire station number 1. Do we bond or will we take a look at that only if it goes out and just have it in the CIP, or will we replace it before it goes out?
That's scheduled depreciation on that, I'm sure.
Councilor Whiting, that boiler unit has kind of at that point where the system income will probably decrease the likelihood that you have an actual massive failure.
Questions on the building internal fund?
Yeah, the 120 for City Hall construction fund.
That's part of that $8.5 million funding fee for that.
Okay, yep, this is the payment for going toward it.
Yeah.
Got it.
The 120,000 over 10 years.
Yep.
Are we good?
I don't see that component, I must be missing a page.
Sewer fund, sanitary sewer fund, expending 1.2. Fund balance actually increases.
I didn't get a summary page for building, if you can give me a copy of that.
Oh, total expenditure is 1.8, I apologize. There's some old infrastructure extension way out on the east end, Hanson Avenue.
Is any of that going to be assessed?
No sewers?
Yeah.
On the Hanson way out there? Don't know. I'm trying to find the,
175 page.
on page 170, utility extension to Mayor Street and Hanson Avenue. Will require sanitation sewer grinder pumps. We're seeing septic failures out there. Possible grant.
So I think, Mr. Mayor, that's the trunk extension pieces of that, as development occurs, the trunk fees are coming to pay for that.
They'll pay for that.
as well.
So that's always been a tough area out there because of
Groundwater.
A lot of septic, a lot of wells, and a lot of bad wells, and
Boiling springs out there.
yeah. A big thing years ago. You don't hear much about it anymore, but I assure you, the problem did not go away. Or didn't get solved. Long term. Yep.
Page number 177, replacing or lining services located on mains that have been lined. What services are we talking about there?
So, Mayor and council members, that'd be the actual services to the actual homes. So the trunk line has been lined, now the services most likely haven't been done on.
Would we be responsible for that portion of it, or?
I don't know, usually the homeowner from the main end.
Yeah, from the.
Yeah, but we're responsible from the main to the curb.
The curb stop. Yeah.
Property line.
So are we just doing the lining into the curb stop?
Changes per community, so I would have to give more
We go right to the,
information.
you're the learning curve, we'll give you that, but this one seemed funny to me.
All right, I will check on that, and we will provide more information and clarify that in the text.
Thank you.
The text says lining of service pipes from the main to approximately the right of way.
So that would be to the curb stop.
So out of the main to the start of the service to the curb.
Okay.
But I think there's other lines besides the mains. You got the mains like running down the middle of the road, and then you have other lines that are not the main lines that are
Going through another section or
in the
something.
middle of the road, but they're not classified as a main because they're not the main line.
Maybe like
To get a lot of the mains, we need to do our accessory lines that are the city's operational lines.
That's what he just said.
That aren't necessarily homeowners lines.
Right.
We'll get some clarity.
We'll get some more
Appreciate that.
information.
Thank you.
More, less on this,
But if you want to read it back, you can do mine for me.
No, I did my own, I know how that is.
Counselor?
On this Versa lift vacuum trailer vehicle, is this something we use on a regular basis? Or how often is that thing task.
The vacuum truck?
Maintenance.
Anytime there's a problem with the sewer, we use
We better have that thing.
Yeah, I think they
Okay.
actually use them for maintenance purposes.
Yeah, Mayor and council members, that's a pretty hot item in a community with some age on it. And actually, I have notes here that we might want to look at something different than a trailer. For a community of this size, it's actually kind of unique to have only a trailer type of back. Most communities of this size actually have a back truck, it's mounted on a truck.
And we maybe keep that until its life expectancy as a backup?
Yeah, so I think what I would propose doing here is actually pushing this a year until we can further evaluate, what the specific use and need is for the city. So that would be my proposal rather than planning to replace it in 2018 and be pushed this a year so we can better evaluate the need and the use of that.
Use the service if we have to.
Yep.
Councilor Lewis?
Just from the picture I see of that back truck, that's not strictly a sewer back truck. That can be used for excavating around utilities and that's where you got touchy areas where you can't literally dig, you suck it out.
Yeah, it can be, but I don't think the crews are using that for that. A lot of times there's a little different setup to do that, and I don't think that this back trailer has that setup.
But if in a rig that you were talking about, would we be looking at something like that?
Both of them can be set up to do that. It's just different nozzles and equipment to put on it. So, but I don't think the one that the city currently has is set up to do that, to do excavation.
But it's something we would look into because again, you're going around an electrical utility for some reason, you don't want to be sticking a shovel in the ground.
More or less, the sewer fund. Otherwise, we'll move on to storm drainage. Spending 1.5.
Well, Mayor and council members, if I could go back, I forgot one here. And boy, off the top of my head here, it's the SCADA replacement. So it's a telemetry for the lift station.
I do have
179. I do want to look at that a little closer. It's the system we have is a little outdated, and there's no backup on it. And so I'm evaluating that a little closer. But that we might want to push that one up to 2018.
Push the back out, move this up.
We have upgraded that at one point. I have, since I've been here. I don't.
Let's stay with SCADA though. SCADA's like the
computer control portion and the notification and backup.
So this is the telemetry that tells us if something goes wrong. So the concern I have is if something goes wrong, the info I have right now is we have 45 minutes to react to it before basements start backing up. So 45 minutes is almost no time. 45 minutes gets us to the site, gets us to open the door, and 45 minutes are up. So we only have one system and we don't have a backup to it. So if this system fails, the next system is someone calling because we got backup in the basement.
Well, when we researched this, find out because we did put an upgraded system in there for that purpose.
Yep.
And it wasn't within the last 7 years. I mean, we did in the last 7 years.
I know that these are regularly, we've got a lot of updates to them.
Yep,
And I
not
know
disagreeing with
Puck
that. I
uses
just want to
the
make sure that the information is all
SCADA
accurate.
systems and-
Okay. Look into that. All right. Storm drainage. Anything major here stand out? A lot of, I see the pond cleaning channel, regional storm ponding, a lot of activity there. Again, I think that we're on a maintenance for our ponds, but I think that around the metro area, the cleaning, maintenance, and management of these ponds is becoming a big expense, increasing expense. Councilor Lewis?
Where do we stand as far as the Old Town area where we put our water right into the river? You heard anything from the state on where they're going to force us to do some kind of a ponding system before it hits the river?
There's been some, at my level, some general, we know that there's some general discussion in that council in regards to that. Everybody is very
tuned to hear what may come of it, because we want to be on the front end of it. That's why I'm asking is.
And that actually ties into the discussions we've had with the watershed district as well. So we're currently in the process of renegotiating our agreement with the watershed district. And my big concern is that there's nothing in there that says in our current agreement that we are not responsible for treating the water that comes from the north, or excuse me, that comes from the south. And so because of that,
Or at least a fund is set up.
yes, correct.
To assist.
Correct. Based upon formulas of what we currently have flowing through us to the river. So there's nothing yet except for rumors, and we are very attuned to that particular issue.
Has anyone done any just cursory look at, where we could put something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I had no idea where we
did.
would.
There was some of that I read where Bruce had it laid out where you've got the one that goes down Minnesota Street, I think it is, and you've got the other one down on Numkig. Well, we know where they go, so it's a matter of this location, whether that's some kind of a rock trap or whatever. But I think we need to back way up at the beginning of this conversation and make it perfectly clear to the general public that what we are putting into the river is not dirty.
No.
It's rainwater landing on a impervious surface going into a concrete tube flowing down. It's probably cleaner than what's in the river to begin with.
Oh, that I don't doubt. It's just that there's a
I'm serious. I mean, that's a serious
Well,
thing.
I don't disagree, but ultimately, if that's what that council determines that we're supposed to do, and it's determined that they have that authority.
Yeah, but from the general standpoint,
Yep.
it's rainwater running off down concrete into a really funky river.
Well, and if you talk to the sweeping guy that's got on the west end there, he said he takes the sweepings, he's got to have them tested every time he takes them out to a landfill, and the state calls him back and says, why are you wasting our time? Because there's nothing here.
Really?
So basically the rainwater's washing down dirt. It's inert.
The banks of the river are here.
Well, more research for new public works person.
All right. I have some notes here. I'll get more info.
For storm drainage, any items here stick out? Some equipment here. New sweeper coming. They're fun to drive.
Now, we talked a little bit about this in the past, but this Mill Pond Dam, is this kind of going to the same aspect of ponding that rainwater so it can drop the silt out? That's why we have to rebuild this?
Well, the Mill Pond Dam itself is not really so much for that. It's we put it in 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and allowed. Well, there were two things. There was also fever.
Well, that'll do it. Yeah.
That helped in raising that water level. But then last year, that all flushed out, and so you've got that the Mill Pond level went down about 2 feet at this point. So we're in the process of, I believe we've already got that ready to go.
Is that something necessary? I mean, it's not a lot of money, but is there something we need to replace?
Yeah.
You're talking the dam where you can, when on a low tide, you can walk across? That's wrong.
There's one actually over by the mill.
Oh, you're talking down there, okay, I was talking more up,
No.
where it comes underneath the bridge.
No, it's down.
Because that area, last time I was down there, that could use some repair work.
Yeah, there's.
$100,000.
Repairing this dam would lend to better water quality.
Yep.
For it in
More
the
holding.
river, because right now it flushes right through there and
Yeah.
sediment, I mean, the
Holding back.
So that's
river
what
is
we're
very
doing
much
right now.
more.
Okay.
And this was, according to Bruce prior, was old infrastructure that, very old that came out and,
This is due for a redo.
Call Beaver Dam infrastructure.
No, I wanted to hire beavers to take care of it. We couldn't find it.
Okay, I was just curious if that was something necessary.
Your future water things are on 207.
all right. Anything else on that? I have one question actually that I missed, that might be dear to my heart. On page
No, I understand.
139, in the
Park Asset Internal Service Fund. In 2022, you talk about Huber Park Community Playground. Is that a replacement or just a tune-up?
That's a tune-up.
Thank you. Because we have
If it was
a
replaced,
great
then it would say
park
donation.
playground, and now we have a new one, and then you see your playground.
So that, we don't need
If it
that.
was replaced, then it would say donations by Mars.
Oh, okay. It's a tune-up, I like that. Well, thank you.
So
He's just wondering when he needs to pay.
Let's start now.
start saving up.
More discussion on the CIP. First flush, we'll get some questions, some more details, we'll see this back.
Yep. Yes, Mr. Mayor, we plan to bring it back, probably back when we bring the preliminary levy forward in September. We can obviously bring it forward sooner than that if we need to, but that was kind of the initial plan we would bring it
No, I
back.
appreciate this came out early and stand alone. The next time, it sounds like we would be pretty final.
We would be adopting the CIP, and then from that point on, we're developing the operating budget, and all the 2018 projects after the CIP is approved, we then go into the operating budget for approval at that point. So it's a multi-step process for the next year's projects themselves.
Cool. All right. Good on the CIP? Absolutely.
Yeah, I just guess I need to apologize to council because I didn't bring my book. I figured we'd be using the overhead, and I didn't know we lost the overhead already, so. Normally you walk through it on the overhead and it's, no, it's not your fault. I have the book. I just figured we're gonna do it on the overhead and it'd be a lot easier, but.
Okay.
We got through it. I could have shared.
The, moving forward then, 12A, city bill list for perusal. Questions? Otherwise, we will go to.
Quick one on the bill list. I noticed the community center, the gas usage seemed awfully high for this time of year. What is all on gas, I guess, is my question up there.
I assume the generators at the ice rink are gas, Jamie?
All the hot water heaters are gas.
You're
talking about heating or electric?
I think it just said community center, but I'd have to double check here on the. Anyway, just something you can maybe look at and tell us later. It's not something we need to.
Sure, that
It
would
just
be.
seemed like it was a little out of line. All the other ones are very small, and that one was in the thousands.
You just pulled those bills, so we were just looking at those because we noticed the same thing.
We don't know if it's the ice or the.
They're both.
So combined.
No, both budgets have a pretty high gas amount at this time, so Darren just pulled the bills 2 days ago, and we have yet to evaluate them, but, yep, we will, yep.
Either we got something malfunctioning or something up there. It seemed awfully high.
Yeah, all of our hot water heaters run on gas, and there's a lot more hot water heaters than we ever had before, so that may be something that's part of it, but we'll double check.
Okay, more information.
Yeah, if you could bring it back, that'd be appreciated.
Thank you.
Or just look into it, because if there is a problem, we need to find out.
All right.
Yeah, I'll look.
That caught your eye?
Yeah, we were looking at the electrical stuff.
Okay, let's move forward then. 12B, liaison report, Counselor Lehman.
School board. Let's see here. They are bringing back a study figuring out their appendix area review. It's going back on the 24th. They've narrowed it down to a couple different options, 2 options. Trying to keep it. We're looking at it from a couple different perspectives, but.
And Council Lehman, just for council's information, our planning department is providing them assistance in helping to define it.
Okay. The change orders on their project, there was like 8 of them, and their construction manager said basically that all of them combined are less than 1% of the total project cost, and normally a project that size is 3 to 5%. So they thought that was a really good thing that they were so low on their change orders.
What about the one
Change orders
positive?
at this point.
At this point, yep. But then there was also the second phase, which was 2.3 million, is that right? 2.3 million in south side, and then the 79, there's some controversy about the 79 phase of project not happening, and that being so, that's not true. That's actually going to be next summer's project. And then they raised the activity fees, $40 for parking and $30 for all activities. So you're talking.
Where does the parking go to?
Parking, let's see, activities are going up to 150. Parking went up $40, so it's going to go from 60 to 100.
Oh, there's the number. I saw it was going up, but I didn't get the final number. So.
And that's going to have an impact
Yep,
on
yes,
our
the cause and effect.
Yep.
And
So-
and yet again, the mayor and I both talked to the county about this the last time at our city-county meeting. And we're going to continue to try to press to get the county to do something in regards to ensuring that students can safely cross that area. Because unless we totally take all the neighborhoods around and make them no parking areas, which...
That's the neighbors.
It impacts the neighbors across the street, and then the crossing of the street, and that's what we're...
Well, it hurts the neighbors that utilize their own neighborhood when they can't park.
That's fair.
So, you know, I know that the crossing on 15 is a concern to me because I'm looking longer down the road that if that's going to be a junior high, they're changing some of their schools around too. And Pearson's going to go back to an elementary, and this is going to be a junior high, and so that means there's going to be more walkers to that school. And if they're coming from the south, they're going to be coming up 15, and if they're on the opposite side, they're going to have to cross. So, I don't know if we talk to the school and the county and do whatever. But
Well, we will, Councilor, we'll continue to press those issues because they are.
The other issue that caught my attention, that I made a note here somewhere, was they increased their referendum levy authority to the maximum. I think I put my notes here. So it's $300 per student. Doing this off memory because I can't put my notes. $300 per student referendum authority under the state guidelines. And they didn't get into specifics of why that's happening. But the way I understand it basically is the existing referendums that they have, if they didn't use the whole capacity, you can go up to that capacity. So they're going to go up to that capacity, whether that helps them with some shortfalls or whatever. But it's not supposed to have an impact on your tax statement. But it comes from the same people that told me it would be $179 on a $200,000 house. It turned out to be $440 on a $150,000 house. So I'll just tell you there. Somebody was off some numbers somewhere. So that's my report.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilor Lutz.
Yeah, I just want to add something that he probably missed, Councilwoman. The fire review that was done for the plan review, I guess their contractor took it to the state and found out that they could take, what was it, $29,000 or $23,000 off of their cost because they were overplanned.
I didn't miss it. I just didn't go over each one of these change orders. But let me see here.
The school district saving money?
That gave them a savings, yes, but that looks negatively on us because we're telling them they need it and the state's telling them they don't. So, I mean, somebody maybe needs to check into that to see if there was a miscue on a handbook or what it was.
Some of those fire calculations are...
It was change order number 5, and it was there was a deduct amount for $29,165, and it was a sprinkler fire. And I don't know if it was exactly the city saying this and the state saying this, or if it was the contractor who had a different head design or something. I don't know the full details of it, but I know that there was something was done, that there was a savings made somehow.
Construction or architect or whatever it was, obviously a savings, small savings to that. But.
Those calculations, I've run into that before. Some of those head pressure things are difficult to assess.
Didn't need one somewhere or something.
Councilor Whiting?
I have nothing to report. I do want to mention again the Rhythm on the Rails starting tomorrow night. Hopefully y'all can make it.
Thank you. I have a couple things, and I was remiss in welcoming our new public works director, Aloha. Welcome. Thanks. Glad to have you on board. I also was going to mention tomorrow night downtown, rather than on the rails. Coming up Thursday at noon, opportunity for a soft opening of the pool and the playground. And Councilman Mokel and I were over at the pool today, and it's fabulous.
Yeah.
So those are a couple things, and then that's all I had. Councilor Mokel?
Got a tour of community center with the mayor, and he was definitely showing us jumping in the pool. And I think Jamie got some good pictures. So
Did the slide?
She pushed me down the slide.
We did the slide. Well, we did. I pushed him down the slide. But yeah. So we did the slide, and then we did actually both sides. There's a smaller side that we can go together. But and then he jumped in the deep end. So, well, the small side, side by side. But anyway. But so I went to my first public utilities meeting yesterday on July 17th. And so in regards to the water, Marshallton Miller is still on track. And then they're looking into a temporary connection from Whisper in the Oak area on the Savage side. And their thought process is if they look at that temporary connection, that eventually the Shakopee residents that are over there may connect. So that they're looking at that option. And that would, again, be a temporary connection when Savage is up and running in that area. So as far as electricity, of course, the last 3 days they were operating at peak, and they're expecting a few more times this week. Swift and Miller lost connection from construction. One of the overhead was knocked out, and it actually took down the pole, so they had to shut it down to replace it. And in keeping with the squirrel count, there was 3 in one day, for a total of 4 last week. Jackson Court had 5 customers out of power for 6 hours. And then there was apparently a problem with the cell connection on South Shakopee by the hospital, so there was 2 connection problems there. And then yesterday there was also another squirrel, which actually took power out for 9 customers for 23 minutes. So that's it.
Question.
Thank you.
They're at peak. Were they using the new power station?
That's up and running.
So they're at peak with it.
Mm-hmm.
For Shakopee, and that contributes to the power need of all the members and of what Shakopee is.
So it's less of a power buy.
So, you know, that plant, I was going to talk about it here in a minute, but that plant is capable of managing our base load.
Doesn't cover the whole.
It doesn't help offset.
It's about 49 megs, and that's about our, you know, during a normal day, that's about what we run. And then we peak up to about, now I think probably a little over 100 on a, you know, real hot day, a couple days running. So.
Yeah. Oh, and I did forget, MMCA is next Thursday. I think we all have that information.
Thank you. Administrator's report.
Well, I like going last because I get to check things off my list that you guys have already talked about. So just FYI, I had my Metro Cities board orientation on Wednesday, and I also had my Scott County Historical Society board orientation on that same day. It was board orientation day, apparently. I sent everyone an email that I've also signed up for the MLC Fiscal Disparities Work Group, which is something that since I've been here, I'm really interested in taking a look at that. The ultimate goal of trying to see if we can bring something forward in legislation. Hy-Vee will be hiring soon for their gas station area, so look at their websites if you're looking to get on board with Hy-Vee, which is a employee-owned organization, by the way. As of the start of this meeting, for the first time since I was here, we were at full staff. But now that you've authorized another position, we're no longer at full staff, and so we'll be working tomorrow to get back up to full staff. But that was that's a hallmark.
2 years.
2 years.
Wow.
We finally were at full staff.
Congratulations.
Not anymore.
Nope.
And then finally, this may or may not be the last meeting at City Hall. We 90% think it is. So we are going to give you all your own piece of asbestos, and Councilor Lehman, you get the column that's behind you. I think you have a special relationship with that column, so remove it yourself. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you very much. Before we go, I want to, again, this Rhythm on the Rails Wednesday night, Thursday, noon, soft pool and playground. Also, July 27th, grand opening for the MMPA Energy Park, and I think that starts at 5. Be at Canterbury, and then they'll bus you over to the facility. Great event. Night to Unite, August 1st. And then August 3rd, our great appreciation for the donors for the Fun for All Playground. August 3rd, and that's from 5 to 7 for that, so that's great. Also, I think that we should be looking at we made a lot of effort last fall, or last winter, February, March, over in some workshops of discussing R4, and I think we should get that map with the circles out again and work and continue to work on that. And I would look for a workshop when we can do that, and just briefly talking to the City Administrator Reynolds today, and just have him pick out a date over the next month or two.
Can I get that copy from you?
Yep. So that's kind of that, and anything else, Councilor Lehman?
How's the guy get a tour of the City Hall for?
You can ask, and you'll get one.
I want to see that sometime.
Yep, absolutely.
So I
You
know
could call and make an appointment.
Time to go there.
Yep.
Call the administrator, make an appointment.
All right.
You gotta get it fitted for a hard hat.
No, we don't need hard hats.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, hard hat.
No, that's,
okay. So any other business before us? Councilor Lewis?
I had a question from a retired fire chief. He was up at Belle Plains Festival and watching the water fights, and had some questions from some firefighters up there concerning one of our chief's vehicles being seen in Garrison, Minnesota more than once. I thought our limit on official business only outside of town or within 15 miles of town if they're. So I'm just curious on why one would be that far away from home and not on official business. That was his question to me.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, then entertain a motion. Councilor Lehman?
Motion to adjourn to Wednesday, August 7th.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned at 10:55.